lot of work.
It's fun sometimes. Yes, a lot of fun.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's actually my stress relief. I'm always doing the build.
Jeremy, shall we just get
I'm going to make a suggestion.
Yeah.
Let's fire this off. We're not waiting for him.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Let's just go. Welcome to Untitled Car Project. I am Rob Spring.
Jeremy Molt.
Grant again on his way. We have Brian Morrison on the line. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, guys.
You bet. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Now, Brian, you are the originator of the Facebook group Project Cars for Sale Cheap. And that is how I found you. I stumbled across your group and signed up and asked you if I could post about our podcast on there. You were grateful, or I am grateful. You were gracious enough, to let that happen. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm always trying to help out anybody else who's in the business. It's it's very specific to a certain group, and we all have to kind of stick together on this.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about that before. The car culture, the car enthusiast, everybody that's kind of everybody's there a little bit. I mean, there's people there that are out just to make a buck, but everybody's there kind of to help each other. If you've got information that somebody else needs, it's kind of fun to share that.
It's true, and it's such a passion, and it's something that everybody's so proud of. When you finish a project, you want people to see it. That's why we make these things. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of pride involved in building something cool, and
it's art.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is art. Yeah, and it's really neat to share it with other people and have them think it's cool too. I mean, that makes you feel good.
I love that perspective that building a car, painting it, doing all of that stuff to it, that whatever the project is art. That's a really good take on it.
Yeah. I think it's overlooked that it's art. That skill, the mechanical skill, it can be considered art.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Mechanical, the body work, the painting, if you do fiberglass or Kevlar or carbon fiber Kevlar.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. It's definitely not easy.
And what's amazing is when you see it done right, it all falls together, and it's a perfect image. And we all know it when it looks right, and we all know it when it looks bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. Everybody will compare it to how each individual believes they can do the same project. I could have done that better, or it might not be perfect, but I couldn't do that good.
Yeah,
so,
then do it. If you think you can do it better, man, by all means.
How humble are you?
And there's so many factors involved.
Yeah.
Who knows what the person started with? I've had projects. I'm originally from the East Coast, and if you see the cars out on the East Coast, most are a little bit unworkable just due to rust and holes and things like that. There's not much left of them. And if you can do something with, where you start from, and people could see the beginning and the end, I think there's a lot more appreciation to it.
I fully agree. Yeah. And man, the rust bucket project, I've seen a few of those recently. I've been doing an awful lot of social media looking at projects and that kind of stuff. And there's people taking on cars that I'm like, wow, I think I would have skipped that one. It's so much rust, but somehow with a lot of patience and a lot of work, they're turning them around. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I think any project car guy is the nightmare of the rust. It's a constant battle.
Yeah, and it's one of those things you don't realize you have it sometimes until you really start digging.
Yeah,
getting into some of those nooks and crannies of the vehicle, and you could think you have a wonderful clean car, and you just don't know.
Yeah, you get inside those doors or something, and yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why I love living in California.
Yeah,
it's amazing what we have to work with out here, and I find some of the best projects that. I've had cars that have been sitting for over 25 years, and you can build right on top of them. I mean, you just get down to bare metal and go.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that's really awesome. You know, especially if a car has lived in a dry climate like that its whole life and not shipped in from someplace that's been flooded, or, you know, from the East Coast where they use salt on the roads or whatever it is. Even stuff down from Canada, I've seen some of that's pretty rough.
Anywhere there's snow.
Yeah. So let's get into your background a little bit before we get too deep into all the projects. What did you do? You were telling me, you had a car restoration business. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. I had a business for about 20 years out here, and it was more of a mom and pop, and I did a lot of business with other people outside of the state and pretty much transported my cars everywhere. And again, that it was due to my roots back east, where I could send them vehicles a lot easier than they could put together from their side.
Wow. Okay.
And it worked out pretty well that way. So a lot of good connections there. But I'm here in Palm Springs, California, and again, when you find the cars out here, the condition it's much better.
Yeah.
So
it makes the base of that project a lot cleaner.
But I mostly focus on European. A lot of classic European cars, anything from Jags and Porsche to Land Rover.
Oh, okay.
You know, BMW. So the group is taken off in a direction parallel to it, but not 100% with me.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Is that what the group was originally your thought? That's what you wanted? More the European
originally
stuff?
Originally the group was for me.
Okay.
I started it in 2019. I mean, this is before I really before it took off. I was buying a lot of parts cars, as we do, and I just amassed this huge junkyard of just everything you could possibly imagine European, and I needed to get rid of it. So it was between that and also being able to find what I need. I put it together, but it really didn't fly right off the bat.
Yeah. It takes time for that stuff to get rolling. Yeah.
So what ended up happening is during COVID, when everything shut down and we couldn't knock on doors anymore, if we saw something sitting in somebody's front yard and wanted to ask questions about it, we couldn't do that. There's no more going out.
Yeah.
So where do we turn? We go to online, and it just absolutely took off.
That was the catalyst for it. So the group was actually originally for you to sell your base of project cars.
It was, and to actually make more connections so that I could find more parts.
Oh, absolutely. Gotcha. Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. I was curious what the original thought of the idea, I guess, of starting that group. Now it makes more sense. So yeah,
it actually had a purpose, and it worked. We started out probably with a few thousand people that I knew that were on there, and through 2020, we've now amassed. I think we're up to about 170,000 plus members. So we've got a pretty good group of people out there trading and selling and buying.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. I honestly didn't even look at the numbers. Last time I'm on there every day. Kind of funny.
It's always something new.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's at least 4 or 5 new cars a day, it seems like, maybe more. But yeah, I browse through there quite often.
I did end up actually just recently shutting it down to the public. It's a private group now, so it's by invite only.
Gotcha.
Now, that doesn't mean that somebody can't get in if they don't contact me directly, but there's a lot more security measures. We try to keep the spam at bay and the fake postings. And
feels like you're doing a pretty good job, but it's a lot of work, isn't it, to keep up with that?
It is absolutely. I love what I do.
Yeah.
And I love seeing all the cars, and I love seeing all the for sale signs. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah.
So I have no problem doing it, but it's my fiance looks at me sometimes like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I'm taking care of this giant thing that I started, and you don't get paid.
How much do you make doing that?
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's a volunteer position. It's kind of crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's it was growing and growing. I mean, at some point we were having, just thousands of people trying to join every day, and
Wow.
Had to slow it down a little bit to something a little more manageable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do like it. It's really cool. You see a lot of cool stuff in there, and I will continue to visit it. Probably going to buy stuff off there that I shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, it's always good to buy
That's
stuff.
the idea.
Before.
So our third member finally showed up. Grant, welcome to the show. Thanks
Hello.
for being here. Introductions, Brian Morrison on the phone from our Facebook group, Project Cars for Sale Cheap.
Hello, Brian.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So the whole, let's go back to your restoration business. So I'm a little jealous that in your area you could actually, pre-COVID, you probably can get back to it now, but you can actually find a car in somebody's yard or their field and actually talk to them and potentially purchase something relatively inexpensive. Can't do that here.
It is, it was something that, and that's one of the reasons why I opened it up out here.
Yeah.
Palm Springs is, it's a home to a lot of very wealthy, a lot of celebrities, and there's a certain visual stigma with Palm Springs. Convertibles and Mercedes and Rolls Royce and, all these things. And they said, a lot of people aren't here year round, and what happens is, they could park them for the season and come back, and it's just not worth, putting their time into getting it back on the road.
Wow.
And it sits and sits. Yeah, it's become less and less over the years. When I first moved here, which was almost 20 years ago, it was a lot more prevalent, but it's still there.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I do follow another guy. I think it's an Instagram, but oh wow, that was loud.
Sorry.
He deals in Ferraris, rebuilds Ferraris out of an airplane hangar. Or something.
You mean me?
And
No.
I see that he picks up Ferraris dirt cheap for the same thing. Like he just found it out in a field in Arizona or whatever. I'm like, how does this happen? How I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah. Well, especially
You
definitely
just can't blink.
No.
Especially with Italian cars, it's getting way harder and harder to find.
Yeah.
There's people who make whole careers of just barn chasing, trying to find that one rare car that was in a magazine that someone wanted.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I have search engines running 24/7 for things like Craigslist or Facebook or all these, and if there's a hit, I contact that person immediately.
Wow.
As soon as it pops up.
Okay.
Yeah, you cannot blink on this because they will go fast.
Yeah, no doubt. Demand seems to be getting higher and higher all the time.
What's your success rate of contacting a person if, like, say you do find a hit and have that? Because a lot of time there'll be like ads that are just bots or people that will post it and they won't get back to you for like days. And then when
Honestly, I tell them immediately I'm on my way. That's exactly what I say. And I've got cash in hand and I'm on my way. And I mean, what can you say to that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what you have to be. You got to be ready to jump out of bed and run over there and just do it.
And like, how many times a year do you find something like that? Do you have a number on that?
I do. Now that the shop is closed, I do this just for myself, and I'm specific to, like I said, European cars. The ones I look for the most, I'm heavily into Land Rover. I do a lot of Land Rovers. That's kind of my my go-to. And I will do at least one a month.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
So do you purchase, fix up, or resell?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Or I keep them for myself. I've had many.
Do you have a decent collection going already?
Yeah. I try to keep something from, if I can hang on to it, something from every generation anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's a cool. I like that kind of collection, trying to keep. I've thought about that for myself for Corvettes and that kind of thing, picking up one of every generation, but there's some of them there's no way I can afford. So
Let's see one.
there's that. Exactly. Yeah.
What's worth more right now? C1s or C2s?
It turns into a juggling match as well because, you could have, this decent collection sitting in front of you, and something pops up, and you're like, oh man, I got to finance that. So let's move one of these real quick.
Yeah.
Kind of start the juggling.
Yeah. No, I understand that. So do you have a project in the works currently?
Yeah, you know what? It's not that old. I'm doing an old P38 right now. It's just mid 90s, not even that old. So, but it's keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. Something I can finish pretty quick.
That's a Range Rover P38 or a Land Rover?
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, because you say P38, the first thing to come to mind is a Lightning, like a World War II plane.
That's right. You know, and there's occasions where I'm looking up parts and I'll just put P38 in there, and the plane comes up.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
You were saying,
but you never know.
You were saying earlier it was about a month turnaround time you'd be going through projects. Like, are we talking like every project, or are we talking like it would be like fully rusted down to the ground, hard on the body to put together?
Okay, yeah, those, if it's something that's got to be a full, complete rebuild, it does take a little bit longer. And, and it's not just myself that's doing this. I've got a pretty good team that works with me.
Nice.
You know, whatever you don't know how to do, I mean, there's always somebody better out there as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm an electrical guy. I can, do all the electrical systems on the cars and whatnot. I work on the engines as well, but I also have an ASE mechanic that works with me to put everything together. I've got a body guy. I do some of the body myself, but I'm by far not as good as it's all about who got on your side for sure.
Yeah.
So, I certainly have dabbled in every single aspect of rebuilds, and there's things that I know that are out of my hands, or especially when you don't have a shop anymore.
Yeah, and it's kind of good also, especially if you're trying to organize, a bunch of people together to get a project done. Having the ability to know, be involved in body, involved in electrical, involved with motor, and know like at least what your guys are going to be working on, and have an idea instead of be like, oh, I blindly into it. Here's money. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, and between that and the time it takes with the sourcing and everything else, too.
Yeah.
So, that's really what the time on a project really boils down to. Getting parts isn't easy. Quite often, we've had to fabricate a lot of parts on occasion, which I don't really want to do.
Yeah,
it's not something. But if you're sitting on something, sometimes it's just got to be done.
Do you ever 3D print more? Because that's been a thing that I've seen for a lot more restorations. Has been 3D printing to help with that. Has that been something you've been doing, or been doing old school where it's been go to a machinist or try to?
Yeah, I've got a machinist that works with me as well as a carbon fiber guy, and I can pretty much have anything put together. But I always do disclose, whatever, when I do sell the project, the parts that have been fabricated over what's original.
Is that so? When you have something fabricated, you've basically exhausted all of your options as far as trying to find either new old stock, or is a junkyard even an option?
Once you get to the point where all of the junkyards have been searched, you've been on the internet and you got scammed twice and paid for parts that never showed up.
That's rough.
You've been sitting on a project for a couple of months and you're like, that's it. It's got to go.
Just got to do it.
It's time.
Yeah.
There are some just obscure parts that are just that hard to come across.
Wow. Well, I mean, that alone seems like it would make the car worth more, right? I mean...
It should.
You
talk to my members. To my members about that.
Yeah, I suppose so. Just being able to source the parts at all, if you can't get it, it just the cars are going to die a slow death. As they stop operating just because of those parts, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody does have the part and they know what they have, it is not going to come cheap.
Yeah, I think that's it too. Is knowing what they have. That can be rough.
Yeah.
Turns into gold real quick.
Well, I also think there's some cars that are, if you take to original, that may be, what's the word I'm looking for? Original typically is worth more than a modified car, but there's some cars that are older that are better modified. For example, I would say I would argue saying if you had a Fiat X19, they hold their value when they're restored, but compared to like a K20 swapped one that's been modernized while still being, you know, classic on the inside, but having a modern powertrain, or like a Pantera, you know, I would say a very, very original pristine one's probably worth a good amount of money, but having the ones that have been sorted through all the bugs and figured out, you know, is probably worth more.
Yeah,
I agree
everything's
completely.
already been taken care of. Yeah.
This is something we're seeing a lot more within the last 5 years. Is people are wanting the what are they calling this word?
Restomod.
Yeah,
Restomod. Yeah, the Restomods have taken off, and I agree with it. I mean, there are certain circumstances where it's a more comfortable ride, or, you know, if we make it a little bit better. But there's also some cars that you want all original, you know.
Yeah, I agree with the Restomod as well. I would want all those bugs kind of worked out, especially if you're going to enjoy the car. If you're going to drive it and really, you know, want to have fun with it, it's not fun to battle a car that is ill handling or just doesn't do what a modern car will do.
Unless if it was known for that. I mean, think of this, like the Countach is probably one of the best examples of that. Yeah. I mean, it's a wild car that, you know, straight line crazy horsepower, but it's a dog in the corners and brakes are small. But I mean, that's the car you're buying. Could you imagine?
Yeah, that's the classic, aura of the car.
I mean, the only thing that could top the styling of that is if you took that and Restomodded to put an Aventador underneath it. But then what do you have? You have an Aventador rebodied, essentially.
Yeah, it's not the same at that.
So we're not talking about like a Model T with air conditioning then. We're talking actual handling.
Isn't that just when the windows are down?
Exactly.
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what, for you, Brian, if there's a car on the horizon, if it popped tomorrow, you know, you get that notification in the middle of the night, what car is that?
Oh man, wow. I mean, to narrow it down to one car.
Okay, maybe there's a handful.
Oh man, well, I'll tell you, I mean, if I ever see, and this is going to be it probably will never happen, the 1955 300 SL Gullwing.
Oh yeah, that's $1 million car.
That is the flagship. So hoping I can find one of those one day.
Yeah. Is that your post that's looking for that car on?
No, I've seen him, and he's asking for a lot of money. He's that guy. He's really looking, and I'm right there for him. I've searched, you know, hoping to find something for him.
Yeah.
I think they're all accounted for at this point, but
oh really?
You never know.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a rare car for sure.
I mean, didn't they make is it like 1,500 or like 5,000 they made of that car? I thought it was in the thousands.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a whole lot.
But still enough to make it special, though, which is good. And then, especially being at this point, 80 years old, like how many are still left in really good condition or restorable condition?
It's true, and they were made for about a good 9 years. It wasn't just a quick one and done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Stranger things have happened. They found some of these things out there.
I hear you can pick it up. What in Cuba? They have them in Cuba.
Yeah,
sitting there rotting, but you can't get them out of the country is the problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's probably a cab.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
If it runs.
Well, it's kind of like the lost McLaren F1 in South America.
There's a lost one.
Oh yeah, there's a whole thing about it. It's El Chapo's McLaren F1. If you look into it, there's Ed Bullion has like a reward trying to find anyone who can find it, and bits and pieces of information have come out through the internet in the last probably couple of years of it because of that.
Is that the only one that's unaccounted for? Because I know McLaren is very diligent at keeping track of their cars.
I'm not sure if it's the only one, but it's like. Supposedly, it's supposed to be like a brown on black one, and it was sold in Europe originally, and the owner never took possession of it, and so El Chapo was able to work his way and get it into his country. Because I believe McLaren at the time said they didn't want to sell it to him because you know, of drug connections and whatnot. But yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
There's some hidden gems down in places
that we can't get to
exactly
or get cars out of.
Well, like the Prince of Brunei's collection.
That's
it's rotting in the jungle of like $600 million worth of cars.
We're gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
You have to do a report on that one for me.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. So the Gold Wing, is there something else on the collection on the list of things you're looking
man,
for?
yeah. I mean, like I said, just anything from the '60s Aston Martin DB5s,
Oh,
the
wow.
1950s Jaguars, the XK120 or even the XKE series.
Wow.
Nice '60s and '70s. I mean, I'm always on the lookout.
Yeah.
Is there any like one of one cars that just come out to mind that if you found it, that would be the one? Like it was a special race car that someone had, or a custom built off, like that you can think of that you've heard about or seen that you'd be like, I would love to have the ability to have this car.
Oh man, I mean, honestly, if I was going to be looking at like a race car or anything like that, an American Muscle, probably the Ford GT or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's probably the gold standard there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we're just taking a look at the XK, Jaguar XK. That is a beautiful looking car. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's just it's a smaller engine on these things, and the horsepower is, for the year was immense. I think that it was a 190 horse. I don't remember exactly what that the XKE, but
yeah, by today's standards, it's not much, but for then, that was some good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just stylish. It was just a beautiful car.
Very. I think that's why you choose a car like that, is the style, and yeah, like you said, it's a beautiful car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, for me, it's about the art.
Yeah.
I love to see these cars that stand out like that.
Yeah.
Especially when you get into today's cars that are just such cookie cutter cars. I mean, we just can't compare these things.
So many of them. Sure. So let me ask again about the end of your what is it, restoration business, quote unquote business, because you still do it on your own and maybe for a handful of customers and that kind of stuff. But what happened? That was a COVID kind of thing that really put the nail in the coffin, or?
It was, yeah. You know what? We actually lost one of our mechanics to COVID.
Oh damn! Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that was a real hard time to go through.
No
and
doubt.
Things changed during COVID. We couldn't source anymore, walking door to door, like I said, and the business people started thinking about what was really important to them at that moment. And, it was kind of like the faucet got shut off, and it was a hard decision to make, but, it was just I'm sure you remember, it was a difficult time, and we didn't know where it was going to end or, what was happening. So, closed up the doors and hauled out all the equipment, and since then kind of moved on business-wise, but I will be doing restorations as long as my body will physically let me.
Yeah, I mean, the passion doesn't go away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can turn the corner and do something different with it.
Was all the projects you had at the time, or when you guys were shutting down, did it literally just whatever was that's what you guys got rid of and sold, or did you end up finishing what could be finished? Like, what was the process of that?
Yeah, well, we did. We finished up what we had, and we had some cancellations, and we were sourcing at the time quite a bit. And it usually starts with a lot of sourcing. Mm-hmm. Finding parts is one of the biggest challenges. And once the avenues shut down for that, I mean, it's pretty much a domino effect from there. So it wasn't difficult to see it in the horizon. And it was more of it was difficult to shut down, but at the same time, it felt all right, at the time.
Yeah.
Just to be able to, not do it when we were completely bust. We had a lot of overhead at the shop, obviously, and whatnot. So it was a good time to do it.
It was time to step away.
Yeah.
It was. It could have been fought. I could have stuck with it longer, probably tried for any of these grants that were out there. But with the uncertainty and, putting myself into some kind of a debt or anything like that the U.S. government wasn't really an option for me. I wasn't really considering that.
Right.
And I figure, if it's meant to be, I'll reopen again. And I've considered
Yeah.
I enjoy doing it actually on my own time right now.
Yeah.
It's it's a great stress reliever for me, and
it seems to be a lot more fun when you do it for yourself, and it's not a job.
It's absolutely the truth. If you're not under a deadline or have to show somebody your progress that you're making, and not trying to impress anybody, it really is. It's more about you.
Yep.
And, no, that's cool.
I can appreciate that a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to hear the other side of COVID, because I think the last show we had talked about, or maybe 2 shows ago, we talked about how COVID, actually motorsport itself boomed during COVID.
That was 2 shows ago.
Yeah, it actually picked up, and it was really good for all types of motorsport, from motorcycles, on-road, off-road, car racing. These were, it's really not surprising. We were all sitting home watching TV, and these are all things that you can do by yourself. Yeah, you can
get on a motorcycle by yourself.
Exactly, you could be isolated away from everybody and still participate in these things.
Exactly, that's not a surprise.
Yeah, and people could go home and work on their projects. They could order parts online. They didn't really have to go see a bunch of people or be face to face. So it was actually a really good time for motorsport. So
there was a lot of free time. To work on your own stuff.
So it's interesting to see the other side of it, where it actually was detrimental to the business. You couldn't do the sourcing that you needed to, and the interaction that kept your business alive, basically. Yeah, that's very...
Yeah, it was probably about 6-7 months that it took to come up with that decision.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just the not knowing, that really made it happen,
Yeah.
To look back now, I probably could have kept it going longer, but at the time, it was the right decision to make.
Right, right. Well, and like you said, you don't want to put yourself in super financial danger if you don't have to. You had other avenues you could go to, and it just seemed like it was time. So, yeah, probably the right decision. And I do like your attitude that if you want to do it again, you can still do it. You can pick up and... Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But again, I'll reiterate, it's different doing it for business. And I think you said it first,
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep. The vibe, the feeling, the satisfaction that you get out of it it's a different feeling, because like you said, you're doing it for yourself. So it's really cool. So I have a topic I want to discuss, and you're the perfect person for it, Brian. So,
all right.
Yeah. Underrated classics for vehicles. Now, this can be the European market or the American market. Are there any underrated classics left? Kind of a
underrated classics.
Yeah, because you've got the ones that everybody knows, right? For the American market, you got the Mustangs and the Corvettes and the Camaros, and you can even go down to
like Nova,
Chevelles and Novas and El Caminos and the Dodges. Whatever you got the.
That's American classic. There's also...
That's what I'm saying, yeah. But I don't know the European classics as well, but Brian would. So, those are the ones that everybody knows. So what's more underrated?
That's a great question. I mean, there's just so many of these base models that came out along the way before actually perfecting the the cars that we see and use, or that we want. And especially with European cars. I mean, there's just a plethora of them out there. If I can name one right off the top of my head, you'll have to give me a minute to think about that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. Think about that for a second. I kind of thought of one just as we were talking about it. If you're looking at the Dodge range of cars, the ones that led up to your Challengers and your Chargers, something like a Dodge Dart. That was a precursor and a building platform, basically, for those other cars along the way. It wasn't a fantastic car. People are taking it now and building it into a hot rod. You put a little bigger motor in it, because it had options for V8s, but it also came with a V6. So, they take a car like that and they're turning it into more of a hot rod classic car, when it wasn't meant to be that.
Nope. little economy car, but then you put a big V8 into it at half the size of a Challenger. Yeah.
Exactly.
I was thinking about this today when I had the show notes earlier, and I was wondering if one car that's you see a lot on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and they're not ever really expensive, and they're always for sale, is any of the Fiats of any year, as well as like the MGs, and those they underrated because they're lacking on power, but they still have styling. Is that a car we can expect to see maybe go up because like there's getting less and less of them, and even though they're not very expensive, I mean you can pick up an MG for $1,500.
Oh,
but,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when do those cars like are they something that is underrated?
I think they are. I don't know a lot
Yeah,
about
if you would consider those underrated, I maybe that's something I just see too much of.
Okay, yeah.
Even the old minis and whatnot. What I'm seeing a lot of people doing with these is actually converting them to electric at this point.
Oh, interesting.
The Spiders, the Fiats, the old 60s, 70s Spiders, and the MGs, and I think it's. They're perfect build for it.
Yeah.
You've got enough space in these things for the batteries and the engines, but I've even seen them drop 4.6 liter Land Rover engines inside of an MG before.
Oh, interesting.
This is
wow.
So it's something that's, I think Fiats are fun to work with, MGs and Triumph and these smaller cars, and it's something you're probably going to see a little bit more on the road, or you may not even realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These are fast cars. Electric is kind of a game changer for us.
Yeah. Do you think
Where
there's
else can
any classic cars that electric though ruins though? Like I've seen it, for example, I've seen an electric conversion in a Shelby AC Cobra, and for me, I understand the speed, especially being such a lightweight car, but that just screams side pipes, big V8.
I think it ruins them all.
Yeah.
But does that make it any less fun? I mean, it's a 2-second car,
Yeah.
I mean, and the torque on those is unmatched. It's fun, but yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I'm
takes
with
all-
you. I'm not a fan. I mean, there's a place for the electric stuff, and we're all going to get hit with it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But man, putting it in a Cobra, that just
I know. It was weird.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
What about
We don't want to think about those things.
No.
another car I was wondering about if underrated? I remember back in high school and in the 2000s hearing about this a bunch, and I rarely hear about this anymore, which was the Datsun 510.
Mm-hmm.
No one talks about the car. You hardly see anymore.
Yeah, I bet it's hard to find one of those.
Is that considered
Honestly.
underrated, or now is it just considered,
I think they were throwaway cars even for the time, and that's probably why I don't see too many of them anymore.
what do you think, Brian?
If I think about one of those cars, it just kind of reminds me of the old Chevettes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very similar style, I think, and I've never touched up on one of those. That was kind of like the ultimate college student car, I believe, back in the day.
What year was that?
It was late 60s, wasn't it?
It was
Were they?
like 68 to 70, like 5, I thought, something like that.
All right. So it is even a little bit before my time, but
Yeah.
Before its time, I believe it was a pretty light car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the car I feel like people would buy to race before the BMW, the square body, the 2002 or
2002.
yeah, before people started racing that. I feel like that's what
It was an economy race car.
Yeah.
I mean, a hatchback, right? So it's a hot hatch kind of a build for racing. Yeah.
front engine rear wheel drive,
Do you deal with any of the 2002s, Brian?
Say that again?
The BMW I think it's a 2002.
like that's
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a neat little
Yeah.
car. I've always liked that car.
They're cars,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the inline sixes on those are excellent.
We do see a fair amount of those in competition. Like I'll go out to a track day here and we'll get actually 2 or 3. And they've done some nice builds with those. Some of them are prepped for actual racing. Some are still just road cars, but they're putting in a track day. It's kind of fun to see.
It's funny too because they weren't all that fast when they first came out. The 2002s, I think they were the 4-cylinders.
Yeah.
But the styles on them, and the way they handle is really what made those.
They're fairly
it was
lightweight, aren't they?
What's that?
They're fairly lightweight.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
Considering, when they came out, what they were contending against.
Right.
Yeah. Jeremy just brought up on the screen a car that I had forgotten but loved to death, the Sunbeam Tiger. That's a car you never hear about anymore. I love that car.
Are you familiar with that car, Brian?
That's actually the Minx, not the Tiger.
Okay, well.
Sunbeam.
Yeah, do you guys know about that car?
Yeah, that car right there.
I see that one, but the other one's
No.
Sunbeam.
That car right there, my friend built.
Oh, really?
It's an FC20 Sunbeam Minx.
Interesting.
It's,
A Sunbeam Tiger.
Yeah, it's
So
essentially the Sunbeam Tiger. People used to call it the poor man's Cobra. It was built in a European body, and they brought them over to the U.S. and they would put the original ones had a 260 V8, but I believe the later models had a 289 V8 into them.
that was a Shelby car.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's a beautiful car.
It was weird because how I was introduced to that car. So back in college and stuff, I went to school for Towayo Tech to build cars, but I would doodle and draw stuff. And I remember I spent hours with this specific car I've never seen and just figured what would be like a 50 style and come up and drew the interior. And my teacher came and goes, "That's a Sunbeam Tiger." And he showed me a picture, and it kind of was like a ghost to me because I'm like, that is the car I just drew and spent hours building. I've never seen this before.
I'll be darned.
And so it was kind of wild, but it looks like a front end of a T-Bird, but mixed in with a Cobra. It's just kind of different and cool. I feel like that's an underrated car.
And what an engine they had in those things.
Yeah, for such a lightweight vehicle too. Yeah,
for a small car, with that 4.3 liter in it.
Would you consider that a forgotten gem or a underrated classic?
I'll tell you what. If one came across my path, I would snatch it up in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
that'd be a fun project.
Yeah,
I think it would be. I think Grant, you should be looking for one of those.
I'm keeping my eye out if I see one, but I've got enough projects right now.
I know.
We'll get to that section later.
Yeah,
Brian, I've got out of all of us here, I'm the one who has the most projects that need to be finished.
All right.
Yeah,
5 or 6 and counting. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that convertible I might consider for my wife.
Here's a question to ask. Does underrated classics, do you think any kit cars would fall under that? Because in the 60s, 70s, and late 80s, we saw an explosion of kit cars and they kind of faded out. And those were not just, some of them were replicas, but some of them were very unique.
Well, I think that's what I would have said. The replicas, I can absolutely agree with. I love them, and I've done many of them, and I think they're fun, and you can do so much with them. The kit car has kind of a bad rap to it.
It does. Yeah. It just has a stigma for some reason.
It does. Yeah,
It's kind of strange.
and I've seen some pretty good ones, and I've seen some pretty bad ones.
Yeah.
I think they can be fun, but when you do things like that, it's only as good as its base.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're building it on, and a lot of them are built on, Volkswagen Bugs
And anymore, what's the other chassis?
The Fiero, the MR2.
Fiero.
The Fiero, yeah. The Ferrari Fiero.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I've got one of those.
Yep. And I think part of the stigma for kit cars, whether it's a replica or not, is so many of them never get finished, and that's what you see. You see a partially hacked together kit that the guy had big plans in his backyard and didn't really follow through. Now he wants to sell it for X number of dollars. Some are cheap, some are not. And I feel like that's the stigma you get, is they just end up in a pile of junk. And that's what you see the most.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. And I think what happens is somebody buys the project out from under them after all their hard work, and they couldn't get to that point. And you see it driving down the road, and you go, what? And what am I looking at here?
Yeah, exactly.
Because now they're driving it, and it's registered as a Fiero, of course. And,
right.
And it's disappointing.
It is disappointing. Yeah. It's always surprising to me. I actually see quite a few of them for sale at different places, but the level of professional finish is all over the map.
Yeah.
But when you see one that actually looks pretty good, you're like, okay, he did a pretty good job. That's a pretty legit car. Yeah.
You know what? I've seen a couple of them that did look really, amazing on the out. But then you look at the interior and you're like, okay.
Yeah, that's where it falls apart, really. How do you make that Fiero interior look like something else?
It would cost as much as buying a Ferrari.
Yeah, that's
seemingly.
Like, for example, with I have a Lambo kit car based off of Fiero. Is one of my projects I'm working on. And that's one of the things it came down to, is not only the bodywork on that, but the interior. And seeing some of the completed kit cars with just a Fiero interior doesn't feel like it's as special.
Right.
But knowing to get to the next level to get it to a replica of that car, I mean, you're entering, Ferrari, low Lamborghini money.
Yeah, it's insane. At that point, you buy a wrecked Ferrari or Lamborghini and you start over. I guess.
Unless you do it your own kind of interior design, like, for example, just buying the Lamborghini Countach gauges, I think is like $1,500 on the used end to $5,000, and then that's not including trying to find seats, a steering wheel, and everyone's $1,000 in it, and adding up.
Oh yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that's where it kills you. And I mean, the best you can do is really just tint the windows really dark.
That's a great idea. That's way cheaper. I like it. Brian, you said you worked on kit cars or replicas?
I've done replicas, yeah. I wish I could send over a couple of them, show you a few of the Jag replicas and whatnot that I've done.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see it.
It's been a few years since I've tapped into it, and most of these replicas, again, it's all fabrication.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've taken a lot of pride. If you want, I can send you over a couple just to give you an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Send me some pictures, and we'll post them up with your episode when it drops out. That'd be awesome to see.
Absolutely.
What model Jaguar is? I said that right. Popular for a kit or replica car. How do you do that?
Like a C4 base Corvette, and then you switch that to a Jag, because something like that.
You know what? You can actually start with even MG kits and things like that. Older style frames, and I can build off of anything just about.
Okay.
And put a body to it. A lot of it is Volkswagen, and a lot of I can't say there's one specific that I've ever done. It's always been whatever's on hand.
Oh yeah, as far as your base. And
exactly.
And then what is a replica of what model would it be?
The XKEs.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Again, and those are difficult to source. Yeah. And let me see. I'm just going back in my records here to see what I can send over to you guys.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to see it. That'd be awesome. No, that's cool. I mean, and you've got the background too to pull it off, because you've done restorations of the original cars and other cars that are similar to it, and so I feel like if anybody's going to pull one off, it would be somebody with your background.
I'm not fooling anybody, but I do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's going to at least look decent. We're looking at a jalopy
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question. The outcome of these replicas are just ending. And to the layman, nobody would ever know.
Yeah. Well, that's what it boils down to, man. If you can walk up to it, because I've kind of done the same thing. I've come across a couple of GT40 replicas.
Yeah, and those are...
if they're done well,
they're done
you
good.
Cannot tell the difference. You just don't. You can't tell. And it all depends on the kit that they get and what they're putting together,
Like if it's based off like a super performance kit, or then you go like to a Volkswagen bug kit. I mean,
Yeah,
definitely.
You see the difference in that for sure.
Is there any kit base car you think, Brian, that's just harder than the rest, or that like is not a good base for building a replica off of?
Well, I mean, usually,
Yes,
I think
Volkswagen.
yeah, and I think one of the problems that you run into is we've done Porsche replicas, and unfortunately, if anybody knows Porsche, how wide they are, it's really difficult to find something that would actually fit something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm actually shooting you over a couple of images right now.
Awesome.
You guys can.
While I look these up, let's see. We're getting close to the hour here, and I appreciate you hanging in here with us. I got one other thought for you, and the whole group can obviously talk about this, but pulling us out of the older cars, out of the 60s and whatnot, current cars, what is our next classic car? Is anybody building a car that is going to be the next classic in 25 years? Or is everything that we're putting out today junk?
I've got some thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I want to hear it. And,
Like,
and I want to hear what your
are we
your
talking
thoughts
like
on this, Brian,
like
as well.
brand new in 2020, or are we talking like past the 90s?
No,
like,
we're talking right now. Is
Okay.
there anything right now that's going to be a classic in 25 years?
GT350. I think that car will be timeless as the last great
350
manual.
350R or
Both.
just okay?
I think that Shelby Mustang, I think, will see something. And I also think probably the Hellcats, too.
Holy cow, Brian, these are amazing. Wow.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah,
My
like,
chair,
and I think if you know your colors and whatnot of originals, you would be able to pick it out, and say, oh, no, this isn't right. But I mean, those are full replica. So
Holy smokes. I am impressed. That is amazing. And I really, really like a 356 Porsche. I mean, that is a neat car. Yeah, we'll post these up when your episode's about to come out and let everybody take a look at those.
Oh, wow.
So Grant thinks a GT350 is potentially a 25-year classic.
I mean, I might agree with that.
I could kind of see that, yeah.
Maybe
It's a
C8
Those are really pretty,
Corvette,
Brian.
maybe.
I don't know. I don't think so, to me. And especially the mass production portion of the C8 Corvette. I mean, they're just pumping them out, right? At least the GT350 is a limited run. Even more limited in the R edition. So I think you have a better chance of there being not so many out there that it's just watered down, if that makes sense.
I also
it's
feel
really hard to see. It's really hard to see any of these cars that are going to be on the road in 25 years.
Yeah.
Just the quality of the metal or the things that have changed.
Yeah.
It's really tough to say, but I'd have to agree with you. The Hellcat. I mean, if any car might survive, is
Okay. Yeah.
The other big thing that I know is, especially in the 90s, was a problem that people worried about was that the computer technology, stuff fails. Like, for example, the McLaren F1 has a special laptop that's used to work on that, and there's only so many of those until they fail or break. And with modern cars being more reliant on computers and sensors and whatnot, it's finding especially the rare, unique ones that have that one-off piece, and how long, kind of like your Corvette and the ABS.
Yep.
Those are near impossible to find now.
Right.
So that is going to be interesting to see, keeping those on the road. It's not just going to be like putting fuel into it. And then on top of that, who's going to be working on it? Because we're getting less and less people in the field for mechanistry. At least I feel like it.
Well, I think there will always be mechanics, but I think you've hit on something with the computer controls. Like when that stuff dies, who's going to take up that, build a retro chipset that replaces the ECU in whatever car you're trying to work on? Yeah, that could be an issue for sure. I don't know. What do you think, Brian? Anything else that pops into your head that might have a chance at being a classic in 25 years or even still run?
You know what? I wish I could say there was one.
Yeah,
I'll stick with my classics. Thanks.
Yeah, I was thinking of the say 2005 era Ford GT.
That one's going to be one.
even up to the current 2023 version, it's an EcoBoost twin turbo. It's getting more into the exotics era or level of vehicle, which can still be a classic, but price range doesn't put it in.
I'm really surprised the second gen Ford GT is not $1 million car, being
Not
a manual
yet. It's
V8.
close.
They're like 300,000 to 400.
Okay.
One car I'm surprised, and I expect it will appreciate over time, especially more than this, is any of the Dodge Vipers. They've started getting up at price. They used to be obtainable, like a first gen, you can pick it for 20 grand.
Yeah, you're right. We talked about that last week. The GTS is still available, sometimes 30 to 35. The Vipers could become a classic. Probably the early ones. They're not far off already.
Well, so the first gens are roughly like 50 grand. The second gen ones.
Well, I mean, when they were produced, the 98 or something they started? Or
No, 93. 92 is precisely, I think.
So they're already in the range.
Yeah.
But
if we're going back to cars that appreciate, especially going like that far back, I kind of feel like we're seeing a little bit, but Ferraris typically start gaining their value and hold their value. They, especially mass-produced ones, will peak, then they fall, and then they gain again. And I feel like that's starting to happen with some of the 90s cars. We were seeing that with the Testarossa and the 512s for the longest time, and now they're really starting to go up.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really want to get into the exotics conversation just because they're not, quote-unquote, every man's car.
Okay.
So your classics like... you used to have, we talked about earlier, the Camaros and the Novas and that kind of stuff. Anybody could afford one of those, right? And they became classic cars because people took them into their garages and started building hot rods. And the 25-year rule really was big with those cars, it feels like. They became a classic, quote-unquote classic, and maybe I'm using the term incorrectly. Yeah. But
I think the problem is that cars are so much more mass produced at this point.
Yeah.
True.
Yep.
Have we seen any limited editions on really many cars in the last 20 years even?
I want to say yes. I mean, think of the Prowler. That was a limited run on that one.
That's true. Yeah.
I kind of want to say, I know as we've talked about before, but the Ariel Atom had a limited run, but that was still an inexpensive car at the time. I don't know. Do you think Lotuses would count quote on that? Because they're an affordable car when they came out, like the 2000s, the Sleece and the Vora.
Right.
But would those be cars that people would be restoring and be like
possibly
25 years?
It's going to be difficult for those cars to make it. I don't think they were built very well. Their powertrain was pretty weak. So I don't know.
I feel like cars that will definitely appreciate over time is going to be the quirky cars.
Yeah.
It's going to sound crazy, but like, was it the Pontiac Aztec? Is that what it is? I mean, a lot of people hate that car.
That car is not.
But I guarantee you, it's going to be 20 years, and people are going to hate them so much they're going to come back and be like, think of all these features.
I didn't know we were smoking dope before the episode.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious!
But
Thanks for the
true.
laugh.
How many quirky cars in the past have people have hated and have gone up?
I want you to think about this. When did you graduate high school?
2009.
Okay, in 2009.
Yeah.
What car, brand new, did you look at and say, holy shit, I gotta have that?
In 2009?
Oh, it's tough. It was a Nissan Xterra. I really wanted one of those. I mean, unless you're talking like a sports car.
No. Like something that's going to turn into a classic sports car.
288 GTO or a DeLorean. Those are the two cars that were on my mind that like had to have.
But a DeLorean... I mean, DeLorean's already a classic.
Yeah,
right?
But back in 2009, that was only...
Are we talking just something that started off as affordable? Maybe like the...
Well, that was my thought.
Pontiac Solstice or the...
the Aztec.
The Saturn Sky or...
No, I wasn't even thinking affordable. I was thinking, like, when you're a kid, you see a brand new car coming off the showroom floor, you know?
I can date myself for this one.
So, and I graduated in 96. So I'm thinking, you know... What would I have thought was like epic back then that like today I could afford
Yeah.
if I really wanted to.
I can tell you what mine was. It was a 5-liter Mustang,
Right. Okay. So
1989.
89. So a Fox body,
Yeah.
an old Fox body. Okay.
Yeah, I started with the old Trans Ams, the 6.6 liters.
Oh,
Yeah.
6.6. Nice. Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, those were great until they became they had a little stigma attached to them later
They
on.
did,
so-
yeah.
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 Yeah. Still cool.
So I can think of like
Absolutely.
I think they grow out of that stigma, over the years. They're like, you know what? It's still
I
cool.
hope so.
Yeah.
Those are wonderful.
so the mid 90s SS Camaros were on that list for me.
Okay.
Toyota Supras, RX-7s, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Yeah, those Fox Body LX 5.0s are really taking
They're
off.
taking
so-
off.
They
Yeah.
really are. Yeah. If I was going to do it, now's the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're still sub $10,000 car.
Yeah,
if
you can
if
find
you can
something.
find one in okay shape.
Yeah, but imagine what a perfect condition white on red leather one convertible would be like of that type. Because that's like I'm thinking like vanilla ice car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Mustang. I bet you that's a boatload of money more
Right.
than
But now let's come back,
Okay.
right? Come back to today.
Okay.
What is rolling off the showroom floor that the kids are looking at and going, that's a hot car?
Terminator Cobra.
A Honda Civic Type R.
That too.
Okay. That
What do you
honestly,
think, Brian? You think I got it?
honestly, I could get behind that. Or
Hurts. It hurts.
It hurts. Yeah.
like any of the Audi RSs, right? There's a bunch of the Audi
Audis
RSs
are
that
pretty
people
nice.
are looking at right now and going, oh, those
You know
are
what? That's a
nice.
great choice. You know what? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
It's an amazing car.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's,
that is a good choice too. That's a neat little car for sure, and affordable still.
Yeah.
Like, well, we'll put that in air quotes. Affordable. I mean, what is it?
Well, they're
30?
$70,000 cars.
Can you get a used one for 30?
No.
Okay.
They're still 50, 60,000. They're probably 100 plus
Wow.
brand new.
Okay. Wow.
I can honestly say in 30 years that car will be a classic. Somebody
That'll be a
wants to look
classic.
at.
Speaking of
Nice,
Audi,
okay.
speaking of Audi,
Yeah.
here's a car I was wondering if it's going to ever be a classic. The Phaeton, the Volkswagen, is that what?
Phaeton.
Phaeton, yeah, with the W12's engines. Because those used to be $100,000 car in the mid 2000 range. Great Volkswagen at the time, amazing interior, and they kind of just fell off. And it mainly fell off because
Still relevant.
the technology kind of evolved, and like the CD by tracking navigation. Well, now we have it all on our phones. We have, I don't know if it had early Bluetooth or not, but I know every car has that.
Right.
But there's still some features in it where it's like massaging seats. The leathers they went through a whole process of picking the leather for that car, and the wood, really hand built good cars. Is that something that could be, a classic in 20 years?
It looks like a luxury car, right? Four-door luxury car. I could use myself some massaging seats, though.
Yeah.
That does not sound bad.
All it's going to take is a movie with somebody with the Pontiac Aztec.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be there.
Do
Absolutely.
the back
TV
seats
show.
recline? If they recline them in.
I honestly think they do. I'm almost positive the back has a multiple seat functionality like that.
What about? Well, we're getting out of the affordable range again. But
Well, that's affordable. Like those.
okay, but I was going to throw out something else,
Okay.
like a range of BMWs.
Okay.
Not your low end 328i or whatever they are, but like you get into the 5 or 7 series. Is something like that going to be?
Oh, absolutely. The 8 Series Alpinas are they're beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. And so in 20 years, if you find a good example, that could
Hey,
be.
you're pulling them out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not what I would consider to be affordable. No.
No. But I mean, you kind of have to stretch for the nicer vehicles because affordable stuff that's almost relative right now. A basic car is $50,000. How is that
Which is
affordable?
crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
true.
And if you start
if
looking
you look back at, originally Mustangs were affordable.
right, they were, yeah. Yeah, I mean, a Mustang was a grocery getter.
And and everybody had them, and they didn't know, to
Yeah.
hang on to them. And,
No.
for us to think about what kind of car that may happen to now is, it's hard to say.
It is
'Cause
very strange.
You're right. We spend a lot of money on your basic cars these days.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at cars recently. A topped out, say, Subaru, okay? Because that's a lower end, quote unquote, lower end vehicle. But a brand new topped out one is $38,000 with all the options.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is affordable. But in 20 years, I doubt it's even going to be running, let alone be classic.
Well, the head gasket won't be good.
No, you'll have already replaced it 4 times.
So I'm back to the BMWs. I'm thinking anything M series that's one of the competition versions.
Yeah.
If you waited till they started coming down just a little bit,
You get a little dip in the...
Yeah, if they got down into the 20,000 range and you picked a couple of those up and put them in a garage and let them sit for 20 years, you'd probably see them hit 50 again.
Yeah.
That's a long-term investment.
It is. Yeah. Your kids would benefit, not you.
Right.
Hey, Brian, here's one I got a question on that you might know. Going back to Land Rover, in any Land Rover, could that be one you could see in 20, 25 years appreciate, or something like the new Enos, which is like essentially a new Land Rover? Would those be
See, that's the
considered?
thing that makes that question difficult, is that they're already being set up to be. They're kind of timeless when they sell them, and they're expensive. It's meant to be something you're buying to keep and also collect.
Interesting. Is it a limited run?
Yeah, each one of them, I think. Each color and everything that they do is limited.
Oh.
I mean, they start off. It's in the marketing for things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Range Rover-
they're doing it on purpose.
They are.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of like, Corvettes and, most of the basic sports cars. They're trying to make it so that each one of them has something specific so that it's going to be marketable and worth hanging on to.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I agree with that policy necessarily, but I kind of get it at the same time, especially for a brand like that, because they're trying to sell their name.
But it's also weird because that's a brand that you would assume to be like off-roading, and
It's faux off-roading.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, and if you even look at their low models, their LR2s and things like that, and they don't have the same quality, and I think that they don't do the same things with this as far as making them as marketable or worth keeping. Right? They're disposable cars.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so I can't imagine hanging on to something like that is going to do anybody any good. It's like having a 2003 PT Cruiser in 30 years.
That's going to be the quirky car. Now, this is going to be the moment we're going to look back and be like, did you not buy that SRT4 version of the PT Cruiser? Oh, no, I didn't. It's a $100,000 car. Can you believe that? Just went at an auction.
That might not be too far from the truth.
I know.
Unfortunately.
That's crazy.
But like, what about a G-Wagon, right? I mean,
G-Wagons are awesome.
they're great. And then, those are what, 120,000 or more, 190 or something like that new. And then they absolutely shit the bed for a while.
Yeah.
Do they come back at some point?
I think they
Yes.
do. I think they do.
They have, and what's great about the G-Wagon is it's a style that'll never go away.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell the difference between a 20-year-old G-Wagon and a new G-Wagon.
I know. Isn't that awesome? That's amazing.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah. That would be a really cool car to have.
That is on my list. The G-Wagon is absolutely on my list.
There you go. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, the one of the G-Wagons that are starting to go up price right now and is sought after, Doug DeMiro has a convertible 2-door version, and it was a really rare one that came to the U.S. There's only like a handful of them. But those ones are pretty special if you can find and see them. It kind of looks like a G-Wagon, but from the 60s, because it's convertible.
Yeah. Interesting.
Different.
Interesting. Brian, we
Can't even picture it.
No, we're actually going to look one up so we can actually visualize it. So we just passed the hour mark. I
appreciate you.
I want to ask
Thank
you
you
one
so
more
much.
question. One more
All
question
right,
before you go.
All right.
What car for you is a hard no? Like if it came available, somebody was going to hand you the keys, and you would just have to be like, can't do it.
A modern car or
Any car.
Any car.
You know what? Any Honda Civic that you put in my way, I'm going to walk right over it.
I love
Okay.
it. I love it. I can respect
I'm
that.
not even gonna look in your direction.
Okay.
That's awesome. Awesome.
I am the anti. But thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank
you
you
for
for
joining
being
us.
on. Really appreciate it. Love your story. Yeah, anytime. I'd love to have you back
Yeah,
on
and-
sometime. And
And don't forget, Project Cars for Cheap
absolutely,
Facebook group, and guys are welcome anytime.
I appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
And there we go. Awesome.
Should I pause?
Brian Morrison, ladies and gentlemen, from Project Cars for Sale Cheap. That was great to have him on.
Yeah.
A lot of information. Really,
I'm
really
mad
good
I
guy.
missed the intro.
Oh, well, you'll have to listen back to it, right?
Yeah.
And, no, it was good. So we covered a lot of stuff, and I really appreciate his time
Yeah.
on that. I wanted to ask you guys on the 25-year, looking back, it's kind of, I don't know that 25 years is actually the rule anymore. Back in the 80s, it made sense,
Yeah.
right? Cars hit 25 years old at that point. They weren't actually built to run that long.
Well, think about it.
So,
I remember I don't remember this, but like in the 80s, for example, my dad's
Yeah.
like one of his first cars was a Camaro and then a Mustang
Yep.
of the 60s.
Right.
And those were still affordable where you could buy them and still drivable enough and parts available where you can work
yeah,
on them.
Yeah.
If you're doing that now, say, the same thing, if we were right now to go back and buy a 90s vehicle of any kind, how much are we going to get into a basket case or something that's going to be, it may have some problems but continue to go? Let's say that's not the Japanese
question.
car. So say if you buy any American car in the 90s, same
Okay.
thing,
Well, from the 90s.
Yeah, that'd
it's
be roughly the
40
same thing.
years old at this point.
Or 80s.
90s?
Yeah, 90s. That'd be 20
90s
years
is
old.
20, almost 30 years old. 30.
Yeah.
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 94. 94 will be 30 years old.
Yeah. So like I would say like if you're in the 80s, you can't versus something like that you'd pick up from the 60s or 50s as a daily back then as the 25-year rule, you would still have something that's drivable and runnable and people would know how to work on them. When it comes nowadays, we have the internet and stuff easy to work on, but I think it's availability of parts. I think it's also who do you know is going to be able to have that knowledge to work on that?
I mean,
What's the question?
all three of us in the room. I don't know. He went way off
Yeah.
the rails here.
What
you
was the question?
You were saying originally what would be considered 25 years in the future. Like, is that still going to
No.
be 25 years
So
in the future?
No, that's not really
he
where I
said
was getting
is
at.
the
No?
rule of
Is it
25
still
years
valid?
still valid?
Yeah, that's what I was
Because if
trying to
we're
say.
looking at cars from 1994, 30 years, actually there's nothing in 94 that's probably worth a shit except third gen Camaro.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
and
what I was
some
getting at.
Corvettes, and the Mustang is
There's some things trying to
Yeah.
come back. But-
but okay, so my point is I think 25 years is too short now
Is
to
it-
be
Is it though? Because
I do.
like,
so
we
25
gotta-
yees is
we gotta think
2000.
about it- think about
the
it
year
from-
2000 roughly.
I was
Okay, it's
thinking maybe shorter,
1999.
like 15 years.
think about it from the younger generation's point of view.
Yeah.
Right?
God, they don't know shit.
They don't know shit, but but like
I feel like I'm personally attacked right now.
when you were in high school and you look back to the 25-year mark, don't tell me what year it was. But you look back to the 25-year
It was
mark.
before I was born. If I was in high school,
So if I would have, I graduated in 96, so 25 years would have been 71, right? In 1971, if that was a classic car in 96, Mustang, fastbacks,
Hemis.
the Hemis, yeah. So jump forward, I've got a 23-year-old, a 22-year-old, and an 18-year-old, right?
okay.
What would they think was a classic right?
That's a great question. You should quiz them.
Right? I'm going to. We'll quiz.
We'll come back
Riley.
to this. That's good.
We will definitely quiz Riley.
I like that. I can actually ask my son and daughter.
You guys have a millennial
My
sitting in front of you, not even asking if you're so and so.
You're different. You hold on. You just hold on. How old are you?
33.
Okay.
Yeah.
My son's 27, turns 28 this year. So he is car knowledgeable enough that I can ask him that question.
Right. And Riley,
My daughter probably wouldn't care, but I'm going to ask her anyway. And that'll be interesting. Like, he was born in 96, she was born in 98. So, we'll see what they think a classic car is.
Yeah.
And we'll reconvene on that. But I don't know. I feel like just because of the cars that we build anymore are so assembly line shit that 25 years, I mean, they're built to last, surprisingly. I mean, some of them really are. We're still driving 30 and 40-year-old cars. They're on the road.
I mean, look at the
They
Excursion.
look like crap and they're ugly and whatever, but
I mean, look at the Excursion. It's got 400,000
was
miles.
that a 93 or something?
No, 2005. So
Okay.
that's like 20-year-old car.
It's 20-year-old.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They're not good looking. They don't inspire anything. They don't, for a car guy, right? Maybe they inspire something for somebody.
We're talking about economy cars offline. We're not, because I would argue and say,
general.
like,
I'm talking cars in general.
Cars
You
in
name
general.
one that is what's a 1995 classic?
all right, you
car?
ready for this? I'll give you a
Yes.
list. Here we go.
I'm ready.
XJ220, McLaren F1, the
Stop.
Victor W3.
Don't-
Stop.
No exotics.
Well, that's what I just said.
They don't
'Cause
count.
you
No
said
exotics.
offline.
No
Okay, so
exotics.
if we're not talking off exotics.
You're right. I did say anything, but
Yeah.
I'm going to qualify that out. No exotics.
No exotics.
Okay, because that changes a lot of things.
It does.
I would say if it's early 90s, square body truck still. Last gen, that's what a lot of people still like for like Fords and Chevys before they
Yeah.
went that way. We're getting a lot of the older muscle cars. The Mustang, we just talked about the 5.0 Mustang, the SS Camaros.
Yeah, but do you feel like a 5-liter Fox body Mustang is a classic?
I do.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
I think it's getting to that point.
I don't feel that way, and maybe it's because that car came out in my adolescence, in my
right.
teen years. So that's probably where that feeling
If
comes
we're
from. I
talking-
hadn't really thought about that, but
Yeah.
that
If
would
we're
make
talking
sense.
about like 90s still counts as classic, does that mean the Jeep Wrangler and Explorers from Jurassic Park are classics?
Yes.
God, he did it.
I mean the CJs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it does.
CJs,
Absolutely.
I think would maybe
Yeah,
the
CJ5.
YJs don't, but maybe they do. I don't know.
Because like when we're talking
Okay.
about classic Jeeps now, like I don't think of Willys. I think like 90s Jeeps, like the bare minimum Wranglers. To me, that, and growing up, that's what a Jeep is. You know.
Can you get a little closer to your mic?
Sorry.
You're echoing.
Oh, sorry.
Just pull it towards you.
Well, okay.
Yeah, and see me being 13 years older than you, I look at more like the 80s shit, you know,
Yeah.
and the 70s.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what does that 1971 Ford Mustang turn into now, right? It was 25 years old when I graduated high school. It's 45
would've
years
been
old,
That would have been a Mach 1.
right? And 43
It's a good car.
years? No, 50. Almost
Oh, yeah,
50
it's 50.
years old.
No, it is 50. If it was 71,
Right?
It's 50.
Okay, so it's 53 years old now,
Yeah.
right? What does that turn into? I mean, I still think of it as a classic car, but it's vintage. Maybe it's a horseless drawn carriage.
I think that's a whole nother category.
It's got another level of label.
Right?
I didn't even realize
Yeah.
there was another. It's not classic. It's vintage,
Vintage,
now.
yeah. I think that's on this point. There's now a divide on that. Because think of this. What would you call like the cars from 30s and 40s, especially like a Model T?
I would have called them
that's
vintage,
for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Right? Is there archaic?
Antique?
Antique?
Antiques, yeah.
Yeah. You got
And then
classic,
they turn into museum
vintage,
pieces.
Antique
And then fossils.
fossils.
Actually,
Damn.
maybe we should look that up real quick. You guys keep
There's
talking. I'm going to
something
pull
to
that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't really even considered the fact that the reason I don't consider a 90s vehicle classic is because I grew up in that era. You know, those cars came out
Here's
when I was a
one way to look at it, and this is tangent but not tangent, okay?
All right.
And I saw this today and it made me thought, okay, you hear me out.
I'm hearing.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
When Marty McFly went back to the 50s, which
Yes.
was like a total classic, iconic, he went back in time to
Yes.
the olden age.
Yep.
That was 25 years ago. They say now if we went back in time to do the same thing in a movie, it'd be like us going back to 94.
I know, isn't that dumb?
But
would be
that's
awful.
that's the perception.
Yeah. No, it is. You're right.
You know?
You're absolutely right.
Okay,
It's
so we
really
were a
funny.
little wrong.
Well, it was 1980 something, right?
1985.
And he went back to so it was 30 years.
1955.
He went back 30 years.
Yeah, and if you go back 30
Yeah.
years to
Yeah, yeah.
2024 to 1994,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
so
So car classifications. There's 3 classifications
Oh,
now.
okay.
Okay.
There is.
Classic.
Okay.
Those would be cars manufactured in the 90s or earlier. At
Interesting.
At
least
this point,
10
yeah.
to 25 years old, depending on the organization.
okay,
I think 25 years old is
Yeah, pretty standard.
most of
it
them.
always has been, yeah.
antique would be the next one.
okay,
And that would be
75.
1975 or earlier, or at least 25 years old, depending on the organization.
Okay,
Well, if they're counting it from today, right, this
Right.
year to 1975,
See,
So
but the
that's
other one says 10 to 25
50
years old.
it's actually 49 years, but
Yeah. And then vintage would be 1919 and 1930, between there and earlier.
so what happens in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years? Do we add another classification, or do we just
Maybe.
keep piling?
yeah, the next
eight
classification is
years
going to be
on?
electric.
Ugh.
Well, but those are still going to make
Ooh,
the antique.
Evo.
And,
They'll be the
No. Retro.
retro. Oh,
Or
could
is-
be.
Yeah,
I could see that being a good in between current and classic. It'll be retro.
yeah.
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 Yeah. Maybe they turn into museum pieces after vintage. I don't know.
Once they
When-
hit 100
when
years
does a
old,
car-
are there 100-year-old cars right now? There
Yes.
are.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
there
Easy.
are. Yeah, I just had to brain that out for a second.
When does a car become a classic enough car to be in a museum? Does that make sense?
1900.
No, I mean, like, think of this. If we go,
Well, it depends on what museum, right? Because
let's say like a
Yeah.
one that's been a classic muscle car museum.
Yeah.
When do they start putting in?
muscle
you know,
car museum, we've already
Well-
determined what a muscle car is, right?
Well,
yeah.
and we've seen and been to those museums.
But when do they start including the King Cobra 2s from the 80s? When do they start including
I would say
more
now.
of the
Yeah.
Firebirds? Doing they call
Yeah.
it the 50 by when does it stop?
You've
when
been
it's
to
so,
the Brothers Museum. They
Yeah.
have those cars.
Yeah,
Yeah. So now,
but they don't have. Yeah, you're right. They do.
yeah,
have,
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are museum piece cars. And I do believe it's more of a historical, they're in there for historical purposes, not because the car was rare or super special, because they weren't. They weren't
Right.
they weren't even that great. But it's part of our culture and part of
Yeah.
our car history, right? So
And maybe that's the
they
difference.
deserve to be in a museum for that
so
reason.
They get so old, they're historic pieces rather than.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and at some point, like this stuff dies and goes away and goes to the crusher or rusts away in somebody's field, or so therefore dwindling numbers. I think at some point, then they start going to a museum because there's only a handful of them
Right.
left.
Yeah.
If they're not in a private collection somewhere, then they're possibly a museum piece.
yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, is it a question to ask? Tangent, not tangent. With the way the economy is and like how expensive things are, do we really see cars really rotten in fields that often?
I think less so.
Yeah.
Because people are at the point where they have to have the wheels. Is it
Well, I
more
think-
economical to let a car rot to the ground and not have wheels usable? And I mean, a vehicle usable, or to
Well,
repair it?
It comes to a point, and it depends on this damn squeaky chair. It depends on how much it costs to fix it, whether it's worth fixing it, right? That's the same value system that the insurance company uses. So is it totaled because it costs more to fix it than it's actually worth? Or is it easier just to go buy another car that runs, depending on your financial outlook and need? So therefore, yeah, sometimes it does become less reasonable. Fix it, so there it sits and rots.
Yeah.
Until somebody says, "Hey, I kind of like that car. I'd be willing to fix it."
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens.
Ooh,
Sometimes it doesn't.
I've got parts for that car somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, something like that. Or maybe it's such a run-of-the-mill hunk of shit, nobody wants it anyway, so they just let it go. It
Yeah.
rots away. And
It's like a
so-
Honda Civic.
like a Honda Civic.
There's a
Thank
ton
you,
of
Brian.
those. There's a ton of those in not the Civics, but
Yeah.
the cars that are sitting in fields rotting in Alaska.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Because it's impractical to fix it.
Yeah. Well, you're like out on the island where my wife's from. You don't fix shit. You just have a new one imported in.
Really?
Yeah, it costs about
Not even
$3,000 to.
Not
get
even
it.
trying to MacGyver things?
I mean, they will until they can't anymore, and then they
That makes sense.
roll it into the field and
Yeah.
let shit grow
let it
up
go.
around it.
Yeah.
If you're
pretty
telling
soon
me
you
we
can't
go up
see it
there and start
anymore.
finding Broncos from the 60s and Scouts,
There's an old 80s Bronco.
I'll bet that some of that stuff exists, but
Yeah.
the problem is up there, the accelerated rot because of the climate.
yeah.
Good luck
Pretty
finding
extreme.
parts.
Well, it's not that. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Yeah.
could pull it out and bring it down here, right?
Yeah.
And start restoring, quote unquote, restoring, but it's probably too rotted away to make it worthwhile.
I think you'd see some of that, some of it
Yeah.
maybe not, because unless you're right on the coast where it's blasting it
Yeah.
with salt water, okay,
Yeah.
maybe that stuff.
They
but
use
they
salt
don't.
on the roads, though?
They don't salt the roads.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Plus,
they,
also with the snow, you've got cars that literally be underwater.
Potentially,
even
yeah.
because of snow.
Sure.
yeah.
You know,
So-
or same conditions of water.
That's hard to know. Every
Yeah.
area is different, how they use the cars, what they do with the roads, how they deteriorate, this and that and the other thing. But
So
I think you'd
yeah.
probably see the critters eating stuff that they shouldn't be. The interiors would get moldy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, maybe they don't rot away, except for,
Yeah.
cloth or.
oh yeah.
So winding it back. So do we determine that 25 years is a good enough time to consider cars to be classic and to being worth restoring? Like in 25 or like
For
that was the original question
collecting.
for collecting. Like by 2050, the cars that were 25 years now or newer.
I think some of them will be,
Yeah.
worth it. But
I mean, after talking it through, I do think probably 25 years is about right. And, like I was saying, my perception was off because of my age at that time
Yeah.
when those
Yeah.
cars were
It's-
coming out. It doesn't feel like, I'm dating myself. Do I
It's-
feel like a classic? No, not really.
It's weird to me. Like
So-
one of the cars we have my dad has is a 94 340 Ferrari Speciale TS, long thing, rare car. We'll have another episode all about that car specifically.
Yeah.
But for me, that's always been a car growing up being around. It's been one of the cars that's been in our family. And up until my dad said, this is a 30-year-old car, it hasn't really hit until
Didn't
seeing
register.
it.
Yeah.
Like, because like it's still in very good condition. We
Sure.
always take care of it. But like compared to what's on things on the road now and compared to how it drives, it feels like you're driving a classic. Because a modern Ferrari does not feel like an old Ferrari like
Right,
that. And
right.
even I guarantee that Ferrari versus something, say, like in the 70s or 60s Ferrari,
Oh, yeah.
whole different feel.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
20-year difference. You
Yeah.
put 20 years of technology into a car, it's going to make a huge difference how
Oh, yeah.
it feels and how it drives and how it holds up.
Yeah, but
Honestly.
it's weird seeing something that's in that pristine. I mean, it's only
Yeah.
I think the clock is 14,000 miles.
Okay.
Like very pristine, but it's now has the prevalence of going around. It's like this is a quote unquote classic car now.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I did a little research on the classic cars. So 25 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I pulled it back to 1999. I don't know if my math is correct. I
that's
think it is.
25 years.
Yep,
Yeah,
25 years.
25.
Okay, so cars that we don't have in the U.S. though. So that 25-year rule for importing,
Ooh,
because we
okay.
had talked about
Yeah.
that with
Max and
Ian. Yeah, Ian and Max. So I wanted to look some up, see what's out there, because off the top of my head, I just don't know. And I'm not super familiar with what was available overseas versus what we got here, right?
I know there's one I'm chomping at the bit at,
Which one is that?
the R34.
Yeah, that's definitely on the
That's-
list. Yeah.
I mean, even for,
The
I'd say for the
Skyline?
last, for years, people have talked about the car when it's being imported in.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that car's taking so much off on pricing.
Oh,
I
is
mean-
it? Is it?
It's a car, let me put it this way. I would argue, say 5 to even 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a car you probably could have got for 20, 30 grand.
Yeah.
I would be so
50 to
shocked.
80 now?
I would be shocked if you could find one for under, say,
60.
no, like 250 grand.
Oh, really?
No.
Yeah, like a rad out one for 150. Google it. Yeah.
Let's do a quick
For the
Google.
R34.
We'll get back to you.
You can buy them in Japan cheaper than that and ship them over
I
here.
could believe that for an R32. I could believe that for an R33, but not an R34. Like
I
people
know
have been.
people are crazy over that car.
Yeah.
I personally
Type
don't
in R34
understand
value.
it, but yes, it is definitely a car on the list. So, also on the list, while he looks, Pagani Zonda. Did you know that car is now 25 years old?
I always thought that could
Pagani.
be imported. Is that really?
Yeah,
Oh wow!
yeah.
I didn't realize that it was. We couldn't import them.
I don't think it was allowed in the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is now.
Huh.
25 years old. But also, I didn't realize that car was that old.
Yeah. No, that's weird.
Yeah.
I know some of the first gen Koenigsegg's. I believe they weren't in the U.S. Like because there was before the CCR.
Something came up on the Koenigsegg because
Yeah.
he's been building cars a long time
It was like
before it really got popular.
98 is when they started,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Their big success was taking over the McLaren F1 Speed with the CCR, but they had similar looking cars in the 90s trying to build up, and only a handful because
Yeah.
trying to build a car company.
Hand built.
And I think those 91s are probably US spec, European only, so that we can import those now.
Right.
Because I know at some
If
point
you can find it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I know at some point to get the U.S. regulation, they had to crash 25.
Right.
All models, they had to actually crash a full cars,
Ugh.
and that was a big thing for the company. So even though it's been around, I think those are probably some that can be imported now.
Yeah.
But
No, if I were a handmade car company like that, it would be really hard to put all of that money into building a car, especially to the level that they built those cars, and then have to crash it just so that you could bring it into the market. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's hurtful. I understand it. You have to prove your roadworthy safetiness and all that, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that would be really hurtful.
Yeah.
Another car on the list, Mitsubishi Evo 6.
Oh yeah. Any of the Evos could be.
The Evo
A lot
6.
of Evos could start being.
So they had an Evo here, but it was not to the level that they had it in Japan.
We didn't get the Evo until like the Evo 10 or 8, correct? I believe it was something like that in 2008 is when we finally got them. So like,
yeah. Oh,
any
year.
cl-
The year.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Any of the classic Evos, like for me, like after the Evo 4, I'm not really too well versed in them.
I'm not either.
But I know anything with that badge is
Yeah.
definitely a car that's a monster on the road, a monster on the track.
That's what I understand.
You
Yeah.
know, that's when
I've seen a few Evos around, and obviously there are a lot of different trim levels. The Evo that we had available in the United States was not to the level that you could get it in Japan.
real fast.
The all-wheel drive, all-wheel steering, all that turbo.
So I'm on.
And I know our listeners. There's some listener out there that knows all about Evos. Hit me up on Twitter, Untitled Car Pro, and let us know all about it. 'Cause
So I know Jeremy's
my
doing
knowledge is limited on that.
research on the computer right now. I'm on classiccars.com, quote unquote, and from this graph showing on here, from 2023 and July 21st, the lowest one sold for an R34 was 145 grand. Up until May 22nd was 140 grand.
So I'm looking
but
at them.
Seeing them is
I'm looking at them in the United States right now. So it's a 98 to 2002 is an R34. The 98s, I don't see anything newer than 99. Most expensive one is $185,000.
okay.
You can get them.
Dumb expensive.
Yeah, you can get them reasonably for 21 to 65,000 right now.
Show me. I still
Jump up there and look.
I can see them, and I see an R33, an R32, an R33. The one on top, that's an R30.
R34.
Okay. And that's our 180.
R34, 21,000.
That's not an R34. That's an R32.
That's a 98.
I know. No, that's an R33.
No. It's an R34.
Okay.
R34, R34, R34,
Sorry, listener. We're.
R34, R34.
I'm kind of in shock.
Most of them are under $60,000.
Get your checkbook out, Grant. and
No, I
buy
mean, no.
one.
Honestly, if that's the case, I honestly might go and buy one. I'm not even joking. Tomorrow. if those are legit real and they're not the base model, if they're an actual R32, not all-wheel drive. R34, sorry. Because like that's been a thing that's been on every website that they're, people are buying them and saying them, selling them.
Go
That
buy
blue
one
one right there?
$60,000 and
I'm gonna
For
go sell it, Peter.
56,000?
I'm walking up to it.
that's fine. All right. So other cars on the list. Porsche 996.1.
Ooh.
Wow, Grant, that was really loud.
Sorry.
GT3. We can now import that. We did not have the 996.1
Point ones.
GT3.
We did have the 996 though.
Yes. Ask me what the difference is. I didn't look that up. I don't know. Not very thorough research. Just wrote down some cars. Nissan Silva, the S15.
Yeah,
With the turbo.
Nice. Single.
That's what it says.
Okay.
Yep.
So this.
Yep. Just
Yeah, that'd be a good one. That's a nice deal.
Here's one you should look. Oh, in the final year of the McLaren F1, we can actually that now. It was 1998. We could
The
start
F1
importing it.
McLaren, the
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I need to get back to my phone. Got things I can say.
Of course you do.
Hang on. I'll look up the R34. We'll go through more of that later because I've got things to say about that. Because some of those cars, like the McLaren F1, we could bring in the United States for the show and
There was
something.
there was regulations against how you could use it
Yeah,
and how you could register or not register it.
that's how we got.
You could get it here with extreme expense.
Yeah,
And anybody that could afford one could.
it's
obviously
kind of like
pay
what Bill Gates and Seinfeld did with their Porsche 959s. Like you couldn't have them in the U.S. till we had the 25-year rule, but there was exceptions allowed.
Somehow, some way, with
It's-
paperwork and this and that. And
It's a
if you got enough money, there's a way around these things.
yeah.
But for a common guy, you couldn't get one. Yeah. Not that you can now anyway, because they're too expensive.
Which car was it that Bill Gates had
The 959
impounded?
Oh, impounded. I don't know about that one.
He got pulled over too many times for speeding, from my understanding.
Oh, I don't know that story.
So with it being 99, does that mean we can get the Diablo, what's it called? GTR imported now?
I mean, if we couldn't import it before and it was built in 99, then yes.
I can't remember if it was 99 or 2001, but it was like one of the last year Diablos. There's a handful in the U.S. I know like 3. But I didn't know if in generally if we couldn't send them all, cross state lines.
Yeah. I mean, if it's subject to the 25 year, which that would be this year, then yeah. I don't know what the difference is between that Diablo and the other Diablos.
So the GTR was the last version of the Diablo made. It was focused more on, it had the 6-liter, the 6-liter in it, made the most horsepower, incorporated a lot of carbon fiber into it. The most iconic part, in my opinion, on that is the hood. It actually has a air duct that on the hood to let air out, so the trunk space is way smaller. It's just, imagine a Diablo that's more aggressive. Can we pull that up on the computer to show? I would highly recommend any listener to be
Not allowed to be imported. Did it not have the safety bumpers? And
I believe so.
because I know that was part of the issue with some of those cars is the manufacturer wasn't willing to put those big, ugly 15-mile-an-hour bumpers or whatever they are.
See, look, yeah, like
On it.
this Diablo definitely doesn't have any front bumpers on that.
Right.
Yes, I think the only reason I think was for safety reasons why it couldn't be brought into it. But yeah, that is a very cool car
So
version.
you going to go buy one of those?
No. I know there's already someone in town who's. Oh, I don't know if he still has it.
That version is
In that color. When I grew up, I was around that car a good amount of times, and it's a very cool car. But
Okay, then how did he get it in town?
I'm trying to think how much to go into. Well, we've talked about this
Connections?
before. We've
Just
talked about this before.
connections?
So it was Mr. Ron Tonkin before he passed away. He had a collection of cars, and one of the cars was that car.
Oh.
That's also how I knew about that one rule of the importing show shine. They weren't allowed to drive on the road.
Right.
It was only like 3 miles they were allowed to put onto it or something crazy like that a year. So it was towed to a lot of events. I would go and see it at the collection back when I was a kid seeing it.
Yeah, you could have it. It was just very limited of what you could do with
Yeah,
it.
it wasn't. You could have it You just couldn't make it road legal.
Yeah, you couldn't register it.
So you could
and
drive
stuff.
it like on the track, or a lot of times they'd bring it to like it was that car specifically. I know was at the Portland International Auto Show a few times, and it was nice because I mean that's a car that should be seen. You don't see it every day for a car that's supposed to not be here, and especially a very unique and rare exotic like that.
Yeah, interesting. Difficult to comprehend why, well, I understand for the safety reasons and that kind of stuff, but it's so frustrating even for a collector to bring in a car like that and just really not be able to use it. Mm-hmm. You could let people see it. Yay, that's cool. But you can't drive it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
No parade for you.
No.
Yeah.
You can't even do a track day because you're limited to 3 miles a year or something.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
I might be wrong on that part.
Yeah.
I know it's very
I don't
limited
know.
on how many miles you're supposed
Well, I
to
don't know how they can even police that.
Yeah,
mean,
I don't
'cause
know why
it's
it's
not
their
registered.
business. As
Yeah.
long as you're not driving it on
A
the
road.
roads,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it really is.
Because there's a lot of cars, track specific cars that are not road registered. You drive as many miles as you want as long as it's on a track. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's the most interesting thing you saw this week?
Pass. Go with Jeremy first.
good
Let me think
Lord.
about that.
Pass.
no pass.
Pass.
This is
I don't want to be silent.
there's
for
no
30
pass
seconds, like,
fail.
go through it.
This is just go.
Yeah.
Supposed to just see stuff. I saw 2 things this week.
What was the
I'll
first
start
one?
with one I told you guys about yesterday, that DeLorean sitting on a trailer.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Looked like they just pulled it out of a barn. I'm kicking myself right after I left the parking lot. I was like, I should really just stop and wait for that guy to come out of the store
Yeah.
and kind of get the backstory on it. I should have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the thing sitting on a trailer, it looked like the interior was packed full of stuff, just stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe he was moving.
Playing
I haven't-
cards.
Yeah, playing cards. Jesus. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a barn find. Maybe he pulled it out of his own barn and he was moving somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was really cool to see because you just don't see a lot of them on the road anymore.
Yeah.
Other thing I saw was not in person. A hydrogen-powered supercar built by Hyundai.
Interesting.
Look this up. It's
Yeah.
called an N74.
And I know they were experimenting with hydrogen, but I didn't know they were making a supercar
A
first.
supercar. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that makes sense to have the technology trickle down and have your
It's
Halo
a
car.
Hyundai. Hyundai. There you go. That's it. Boom.
Wow.
So it's got, speaking of DeLorean, it's got a little bit reminiscent of
That
the
car.
DeLorean lines.
Oh,
Anyway, so it's 765 horsepower. Supposed to come out in 2026.
I don't know if you saw it on Facebook, but I got a hate from people. from
Estimated cost of $66,000.
that picture. There's a picture online that Jeremy just brought up that the side profile and looks like a DeLorean.
Yeah.
And I was on a Facebook group, someone brought it up, and I'm like, they were talking about this. Look, there's nothing on the road that currently looks like this at all, or ever has looked like this. And I go,
And you go, looks like a
What about
it
DeLorean.
looks like a DeLorean.
Yeah.
And you have no idea how much hate comments I got online for just saying that. Like, you can maybe consider a DeLorean because it did. I'm like, I just think it looks like a DeLorean.
It does
It's cool.
a little bit. The side profile.
It's a cool car.
It's
I'll
also
give
got
it-
a little bit of 240Z look on, the,
I
on
think
the side
like
pro.
80s Audi.
Yeah, a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It kind of looks like the Hunatron.
a little bit of
Yeah.
Audi, not even necessarily 80s. But anyway, it's a concept car in 2026, supposedly. Hydrogen powered supercar for $366,000.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes me want to do some lines of cocaine.
I can't say that I want to join you. So
Yeah, no, I'm good. Nope.
But anyway, I thought that was pretty cool, and only time will tell if it actually
Yeah.
comes to fruition.
Hyundai's not going to.
I could think of two interesting cars.
Why not?
Who would buy it?
Who would stop them from jumping into the supercar
No,
market?
I don't think anybody's here to stop
I
them.
think
but
a lot of people would buy that.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. Hydrogen powered? It's so unique.
We can.
Who cares if it has a Hyundai badge?
That's why.
That's
why.
that would be
It doesn't look anything like any Hyundai you've ever seen.
that's the
That's
thing. Is
true.
it could look like nothing I've ever seen
Yeah.
before and looks great. My biggest problem with any Hyundai Korean, Hyundai Kia, any Korean car right now is
It'll still sell.
it will sell, but the problem that I keep seeing is with the powertrains. Even though they've got 10-year warranties on them, I've seen multiple times where even up to 2019, you got engines under 100,000 miles grenading.
Yeah. That is your basic cheap commuter car.
Yeah, something that's been put some love and care into, but that could be something very special.
Exactly.
So I want you to think of this: the car on the screen right now.
Yeah,
you would buy that one, right? You would drive it at least.
If I had endless amounts of money, yeah, I'd probably buy that.
Okay, now this is what it's probably really going to look like.
Hang on, I just buy something. Probably, and that still
looks car. Like a 240 SX.
Yeah, that too.
I wouldn't probably buy that car. The other one,
not for 360.
I feel like that car. You know what it's going to be, and I really wish I would have asked Brian about his thoughts on this. The Saab Sonnet, a great looking car, but just didn't have the motor to really perform. 2-stroke, like little
2-stroke.
Saab's had 2-stroke. I had a 2-stroke. Like,
how many
do you know this? I want to say
Can you
3
look
or 4.
Up?
It's a good looking car from the 70s. A very good. I don't.
2-stroke is intriguing.
No, exactly. Yeah. Have you never heard of that or seen that?
No.
It's a very flowy looking car, long nose, kind of like something from like the 60s, but it's a 70s car. Type in Saab Sonnet.
There it is, down there, 4th or 5th one.
Yeah.
Sonnet.
We had a couple of those in North Plains for the longest time around, and
really, we had
the yellow one right there in the bottom left corner.
It looks like a German war vehicle.
Right there. See?
Now that one looks better.
That's what I'm talking about, and it
also looks like a 240 SX.
Yeah, but that's
something about that style back then. They had a lot of cars that like that.
But I feel like that Hyundai is probably going to hit that category where it's either going to be really good looking and perform really well and have a marketing and say, hey, look at this, look what we do.
Yeah.
Or it'll be like this car where, I think this would be an underappreciated gem.
Yeah, I think
going back, where
especially just for the powertrain, like that's such a rare powertrain for a car.
Yeah.
That's
be super easy to rebuild too.
I'd be interested in that just because it's unique.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not particularly cool looking. It reminds me of a Lancia a little bit.
The yellow one, the first one we brought up, that one, we had 2 of those sitting out front. Every day I would pass by the last 30 years and see them. And when the business went out of business, I was not able to go and snag those cars. That was the one I wanted to keep in North Plains.
They were where?
In North Plains.
Yeah, but like
there was a random guy had a not like a gas station, kind of his personal garage, and there'd be just cars randomly sitting there.
And he had those forever.
He had those forever sitting out, and there were some Fiats and some other things sitting out.
Were they for sale or they were just?
I don't know. I never asked him because the thing was the guy only worked at nights. So I would only see the shop lit up like when I'd be coming home at like midnight or 2 a.m. on those long days I'm wrenching. But I'm like so tired of I kind of don't want to stop because, to say hi because, I have no idea if he's in the same boat. We're tired and want to go home. But the yellow car sat outside and it was out front. Like every time you drive by on Commercial Street, that would be the car you'd see. But yeah, that's I think a beautiful car.
I mean, it's cool looking. The yellow one of the ones that we're looking on on the screen.
So bring that one up, Jeremy.
So listener, just Lance, what is it again?
It's a Saab Sonnet.
Saab Sonnet.
Yeah, it should say
if you wanted
year
to
on
look
that
at it.
because I know they had different versions. This one's a Sonnet 3.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a cool looking little coupe.
Yeah.
But I dig the idea. See, that one looks like an off-road racer. Yeah. That's pretty cool. But I dig the 2-stroke engine idea. That's neat.
But back to Hyundai. I could see that Hyundai becoming what this is. Because, again, that has a hydrogen engine, hydrogen out, 2-stroke engine.
Yeah. I mean, if it actually comes out. Because, you know, how many others come out with these prototypes
like
and that
the Supra.
kind of stuff.
Remember that used to be the F1 it called for? And it eventually changed into the Supra?
I don't know what.
Do you not remember that?
What year?
2000 and like what? So the
latest one?
16. Yeah, the newest Supra was originally called the Toyota F1.
Oh.
And it is similar to the Supra, but imagine more of it looking like an actual Formula car. I don't know. I'll do my
so it never.
It did come out. It came out as a Supra.
Yeah, an ugly half BMW thing.
Yeah.
Sorry if you own a Supra, but I'm sure you've heard it before. I don't know. You know how it just never really comes to fruition when they come out with these prototypes. But more power to them if they actually do build that car.
This was the concept car.
It doesn't look that much different.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
the front
has
does
way more aggressive
Yeah.
intakes and stuff than
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we got.
Yeah.
But we did get the Supra. But that's what could be happening with the Hyundai is
Yeah,
we get a
I'm
very
not-
aggressive looking car, and we
I'm
get
not-
more what Jeremy was saying. The
Right.
I'm not saying that that's not right. That's not true. Yeah, because we all know how it never comes out the exact same as the prototype looks. We're all
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that is awesome. That would be so cool," and it never happens, or maybe it doesn't come out at all.
Yeah.
But I hope it does for their sake, you know, and I hope that they can step up and actually produce a really cool supercar-esque, you know, something high end, something that's going to last, something that's going to work. Good for them. I'm not.
Something like that might.
I'm not going to
put
crap
them
on a
map.
That's
on a
true.
company just because they're a Korean company. You know,
yeah.
if they want to produce a great car, then let's do it. I want
Yeah.
to see it. But you know, who knows?
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. I think it'd be cool.
So
So that's N74, listener. If you want to look it up, it's a Hyundai N74.
So my two cars I saw this week.
Okay.
One I've already known about, but just kind of cool going back to it was the jet powered car, the Chrysler. I can't remember what's it called.
Is that the one that had the helicopter motor?
No, it wasn't a helicopter. I sent both of you guys the documentary about that. The Hemmings.
Which
or
I'm
Hegarty
sorry,
did.
I did not watch, but
Oh.
yes, I got it.
I did watch that.
Did
That
you
was
watch
kind of
it?
a cool,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they
I
went.
did do a little research on it today, though. Cars powered by airplane motors and that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
honestly, there's some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it's early 1900s. And there's a Smithsonian article that features Jay Leno's cars. He's got multiples that are powered by airplane motors. A lot of Dassault V12s and some
Yeah.
really big stuff. I'm sorry, not V12s, but 12-cylinder aircraft
Yeah.
engines. Really neat stuff. And they do have the helicopter and turbine and that kind of stuff. A lot of companies have tried it for whatever reason, probably expense that didn't
It's
work out.
expense. It's
Yeah.
economy
Yeah.
of people able to work on them.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. If you brought
yeah.
like now, like for example, the hydrogen cars, having techs to work
Oh.
on it is going to be a whole different
It really is. yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Same with rotaries. I think one of the reasons that hasn't taken off is how many people know how to take and redo a rotary.
Right.
You know, and the people who do know it, they know it very well.
Sure.
I think that's a niche market.
Yeah, I remember. But
Yeah, because there's so few anyway.
Yeah.
one of the things we were talking about with I remember it was like, what, 5 episodes ago, we talked about the jet power car, and we talked about the heat coming off it. Wasn't that one thing that was brought up? We were saying, oh, if
Yeah.
you're behind it and burning up. So,
Yeah, that was interesting.
yeah, so in the video, the documentary I shared with you guys, they bring up talk about that. The exhaust off the jet power car was typically cooler than any combustion engine of the time.
Oh, is that
you
right?
could put your
Wow.
hand to it.
Oh.
And it was because the invention of the heat exchangers, what they call it? Are they called
Yeah,
the heat?
so basically what they were doing was recirculating the hot air back to the front,
which would
heat up the intake but cool down the exhaust portion. So the exhaust portion was actually reasonable enough you could stick your hand in there and it wasn't burning it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating. If you watch the documentary, they go into details, they go into the engineering about it, they talk about why it was a success of a marketing success, why it wasn't. I mean, that car back in the day, they were coming out with prototypes and had the campaign where it's like, we are going to let you, the first 10,000 customers, or no, test that, was it a couple hundred, test these cars for us and have the privileged drives, and you tell us what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, why didn't they work though? Why didn't that technology? Because it's been tried and tried and tried over and over and over again.
so like I was saying-
Turbines are
But it doesn't take off.
interesting, right? Turbines are weird because you have to spin them up to speed,
Yeah.
and they
So-
don't slow down super fast.
Why
right?
why it didn't take off? The first thing was it was Chrysler that built it, right? Yeah, they were in the bank, not going bankrupt, but they were hemorrhaging money at the time.
Yeah.
And it was between building one new car and something else. So they did that program, and they actually didn't have like the full funds to continue that car. They had the ability to make the concept and see that, but to build another factory and facility just wasn't in it. Like I said, watch that documentary, Rob, when you got a sec. You'll see it's got, I mean, they talk about that, right, Jeremy? About why they believe it failed and why it didn't. I don't want to give too many spoilers. So That was one thing.
Now our poor listener is just going to be in the dark. Well, you brought it up, but you didn't finish it.
No, but that's going to be more exciting because they'll be like, wow, I'm going to go on the second thing. Go to YouTube, type in Hegarty jet-powered car. It's about an hour long.
Oh my gosh, that's why I didn't watch it. It's now long.
But it's,
I watched
my
about
attention span
30
is about
minutes
30
of it.
seconds.
yeah, but I mean, it really pulls you in. It's really good.
Okay.
The second car I saw, I think, is me and Jeremy went to a baseball game, and one of the cars I saw outside was a Bronco two-door, but it was the retro style paint kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's
the new version with the retro styling.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
but
an
it was
option.
done right. It was put on big wheels. It had the bumper. It was someone who bought it and then modified it slightly.
You think because you can buy that as an option? You think they did it after?
No, the paint. I know they did.
bumpers
but
were
I'm saying
not
just
stock.
like the small stuff they
Okay.
had, like
Yeah.
the wheel on the back. Was a full size wheel, and then they had like some light bars on it and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was not enough where it was tacky off road. It was enough where it's like, that looks factory. That looks clean. That not only looks factory, but looks retro factory.
Nice. Oh,
And
that's
it was
cool.
very done well, in my opinion. And it's nice seeing.
Which color did they choose?
So actually, we saw two. We saw the one I saw was a red with white.
Okay. Yeah.
So like
I've seen
classic
that.
design.
Yep.
And then we also saw a sport version. That one was interesting. That one wasn't modified, but I think the color really helped. It was light blue with white.
Oh yeah.
Like seeing those off colors
Yeah.
change an economy car to something a little bit more special. You may hate the color combo that someone picked, but that person's gonna love it.
Yeah,
And,
I like that blue and white combo.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, it's a powder blue. It's I probably wouldn't pick it, but I don't mind seeing it. I don't think it's ugly.
It's kind of a satin white too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
I really like the red combo, the red and white combo.
Yeah,
Looks
it's
so
kind of
good.
classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
You know,
You do like the
He likes red
like
to
red.
lean toward the red
a
there.
little bit.
a little bit.
Yeah. So two things I saw. One I sent to you guys on Insta Spam. The Honda. God, I don't remember what the heck it was. It's a Honda motorcycle. It kind of looks like a cafe racer. I really like that.
Was that the one with the 3 headlights? I try to
No,
remember. Or, like,
it was very simple.
that.
Very simple leather seat.
I'm pulling it back up just
Diamond
for a refresher.
stitch.
I know. I was like,
Um,
now I don't remember.
Is it on the random tangents one, or is
yes,
that?
yes, it is on
I can
Random
never
Tangents.
find that one.
What do you mean you can never find that one?
I can never find it.
So that I like the dirt bike tires on it. I like that they
Oh, but just sending you notifications
I got
saying
it.
it's here. Okay.
took the time to.
Oh, that's similar to that BMW.
Yes,
Oh.
the BMW I think was a little bit bigger. This one's a little bit more classy looking. I think.
Wow.
So that was probably the coolest thing I've seen all
I
week.
feel like it looks like
That's
if Captain America had a Honda.
That's really cool. Oh, it's a scrambler. It's a
Scrambler,
Honda
yeah.
scrambler. That is
Kind of cafe racer ish type
cafe racer off road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
got
I would
really
ride
big
that. That's
tires.
really
That's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
I would totally ride that.
So that was probably the coolest thing I've seen all week. I did see, God, what was it? Not a Rolls Royce.
A Bentley.
Yes,
Okay, there you go.
like a Bentley Phaeton. I don't know.
Phantom?
whatever. Phantom.
So that'd be a Rolls Royce.
You're dying on this
Phantom.
one. Doing a
Yeah,
good
the
job.
Phantoms of the Rolls Royce.
Is it a Rolls Royce?
Yeah, was
No,
it- so
this was a Bentley.
Okay.
This is definitely
so
a
Bentley
Bentley.
would be Continental.
May have been a Continental.
Okay.
It came off the hill above my house.
Okay.
Down 185th. It was a gorgeous car.
Was it a coupe or convertible?
It was a 2-door coupe, super long in the front end, surprisingly long in the back end too. It looked like the back seats would still be comfortable even though it was 2-door, and maybe it had a suicide door. I just couldn't see it. Super nice car.
Nice.
Probably
what
older,
color?
too. It was black.
Black?
Black as night. Yep.
Interesting.
It was nice.
I have one to add, and you might want to look
I
this
also
one
have
up.
one more to add.
Di Tommaso Mangusta Shelby.
Yeah,
Mark
Jeremy
V.
brought that up, didn't he? Earlier this week? No? The Di Tommaso.
Di Tommaso Mangusta. So it was supposed to be the predecessor to the Ford GT40.
Yeah, you were talking about that this week. I remember you were talking about this.
Yeah. The red one right there.
Yeah.
Second one in, that one.
That is a interesting car. Like the picture you brought up, Jeremy, and for listeners, it's like the front end looks like a Ford GT mixed with a Pantera mixed with the front end of like a 60s Camaro.
Kinda, yeah. I think it's a really cool looking car. It never was produced, but it was a Carroll Shelby car. Only had 250 horsepower, at least that version that they built there. I wonder where that car is, if it even survived. Because
how many were
some
produced?
of those.
Because look, there's the one with red with white stripes, and there's another red one there.
I don't think that plain red one is the same.
There's also a blue one right there too.
Oh, it is that is that.
Yeah,
I wonder.
And
I don't know.
It says 59. It's 502 59. Interesting. Oh, that's the engine at least.
I don't like the blue. I like the red better.
That's number.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I don't know. I thought that was a really cool car. I wonder how many of those are out there. It looks like there's a yellow one down
I
there,
wonder
too.
how rare they are
Yeah.
compared to like say, or like a very, very like first year Pantera or a.
If it was only built for a short run, Shelby special. I don't know. Gonna have to do a
I
little
like the
research on that
interior
one.
though. Like the interior, I expect like to be in like the Countach
Pantera.
should have had.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's a Pantera interior.
No,
really.
and go
Kinda.
Jeremy, can you go back to it? So like with the Countach, and we've talked about this before on the show. The problem
Yeah.
with the Countach is it's like very simple on gauges. It's very in your face, and there's nothing else going this. This one's got. Because also the
It's a
Countach
good
is a box
legible
coming out.
dash.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
dash you can see. It's got switches, got a radio. Not only does that purpose what things are built, but it also looks very I wouldn't say classic, but I would say unique to that. Not unique to that car.
Era.
Yeah.
It's era specific.
Yeah. You know,
Look at those seats. Like, look at the bolstering around
Wow.
the. Yeah. They'll hug you.
interesting.
It's like big old captain's chairs, almost like a recliner. Lazy
Yeah.
boy. You could really sink into that thing. Look at that.
Oh man,
Pretty cool. I would like to see one. Never seen one in person. I'll bet they're worth a fortune.
Rob, put this for a future topic for us to talk about. Put
Mangusta?
up well, not only that, but
Okay.
cars that have the most comfortable seats. I want to have.
How are you gonna?
Oh,
I'm gonna have you look that up.
Oh, I can tell you from just different seats we've sat in. And I can tell you specifically.
Yeah, but you're not gonna know the ones you haven't sat in. Like, you
No,
haven't
but
sat
I
in
would
that.
like to hear the ones you guys have sat in, and then we could compare them all. Yes, the squeaky one.
the squeaky chair.
I got another car I wanted to bring up this week
Okay.
that we all saw today.
Okay.
The Halo Cybertruck.
Oh,
That one we all had mixed.
I wouldn't have put that in the coolest version, but you know.
But it's interesting
better
things
than
we saw
stock.
today.
I thought it was better than stock.
I don't know what to think.
It looked like it had purpose.
Yeah.
You know, it looked like almost a military vehicle.
It's-
I suppose that's what it's supposed to look like.
So, listeners,
But-
essentially, as we saw a Tesla Cybertruck, and I don't know if it's a company or if it was a one-off, but people are now wrapping them to look like the Halo Warthog. And the one we saw specifically, that we shared a picture to was from I believe the Drive. They were doing an article on it. In my opinion, the only thing that really didn't settle well was the doors, how they were black. Everything else, I think, looked appropriate, but I think that's the one thing off. But it's like a very eye-catching cool, but also like can't put my finger, but it just feels
I guess it is
uncanny valley.
a wrap for the most part. It's
Yeah.
a wrap. Yeah. I wasn't sure.
Sorry.
Doors being black. Actually, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Because it sets them off instead of everything being stainless like it is stock, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the body for
I
the
do like the
listener
green
is
on it.
is a green, like a military army green. It's got some shadowing and stuff. It makes it look
And
like
I know
it's
we've
got.
talked about this in the past. That was the one thing I was like, I know because we've, I said the Cybertrucks, we may not all agree. It looks great. Like I've said, right now it looks decent because nothing on the road likes it. You guys are on the opinion of do not like it, correct?
Correct.
Well,
But
I don't like it.
I don't
okay.
like it stock.
Okay, and I was saying is like wait until we get when people modify, especially like the wraps. And I
Yeah.
said the
People are
Halo.
trying to
where
make
people
them
try
look-
to make it like this.
Yeah.
They're
Like a
trying to
video
make
game.
them look better because they don't like it either. They paid 100 and whatever thousands for this thing, and they're like, "Man, it's ugly."
Oof.
Yeah.
They're like, I
That's
got
not
to do
what I
something.
was
But you can't tell me you seeing that down the street and having someone just playing some classic Halo CE
I have no
soundtrack
idea.
going through.
I have no idea.
That's Halo Combat Evolved.
Sure.
Yeah.
Slide your window open and play the Halo
hands down.
soundtrack.
Van Halen, did you say?
Halo.
Van Halen.
Did you not grow up with Halo, Rob?
No, I can't.
Dude.
I mean, I grew up, but did you play Halo?
No, I don't play first person, third, whatever shooter. I don't do it.
I'm surprised
I
not.
can't. I get weirded out in my head. They get sick. I can't.
So
do it.
I'm surprised. Other than I understand the gaming,
Yeah.
but the story I feel like you would really get involved with. They
Well,
had a whole
being
book
that
series before that.
Nah, not interested.
Okay.
I'm
If you
20
don't
years
play the
older than you.
game, you don't give a shit about the story.
Yeah. Why would you? Right. I'm with you.
Hemming and hawing on that, but
Because, think about... God, we're getting into video games. How did this happen?
Because we're trying to kill our listenership.
but
Apparently.
but this is where
Go back
truck
to the
comes
truck.
in, like because
Yeah.
the truck in. We're talking about video game because that's what that truck invoked.
Yeah.
Now imagine when someone does that with another wrap or another mod that brings up this much passion.
So,
To somebody, I mean, it makes sense for whoever did it, right?
Yeah.
They think that's cool as shit.
Imagine like a
I
Mad
think it
Max
looks-
version.
I think it looks a lot better than stock. Good for them.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
it's like the black one that I saw, right? It looked
Yeah.
really good in black.
Yeah,
I
better.
hate it in stainless. I think
Yeah.
it's ugly.
So it'll be interesting to watch, and this whole subject's going to come up more as we see different iterations of the Cybertruck and what people do to it.
Yeah.
And good. I hope they modify it.
Yeah.
It needs it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It needs it.
Some
And
different
honestly,
wheels.
I'm surprised how many we're seeing already.
Yeah.
And maybe
Honestly, yeah.
we're behind the times. I don't know. Maybe other states have seen them
Oh, yeah,
a lot
I'm sure.
more. Whatever.
I'm sure
We're
there's
also
a ton
close
of
to
them
the
in
factory.
California.
I mean, other than California, like we're right next door to it.
Isn't the factory in Texas now?
I don't know. They still have the one in California. Did they fully move to Texas now?
I'm gonna have to look that up real quick.
Okay.
I have no idea. But anyway, I know that this area is big. Obviously, we've got a shit ton of that, and maybe that's why we're getting shipments of
Well,
the
also,
Cybertruck.
iPhone is the lightway. It's one of the highways that has just charging stations up and down it.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You
I mean,
know.
it's our main route, north-south, so it doesn't. That's not surprising. Kind of need it, right? Yeah. I don't know. Part of the thing we got to deal with. I don't see a lot of them. I did see one. I thought they were all being brought up for delivery because they're so far behind, but I saw one on a dealer floor a couple days ago.
In the mall?
No, there's a Tesla dealership out in Beaverton now.
Yeah, where the old Toys R Us used to be.
Yeah.
It's weird that they're full dealerships rather than being in the malls.
Yep, full dealerships,
Yeah.
standalone,
Yeah.
brick and mortar. Yeah, they're kind of popping up all over the place a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I saw one in the dealership, and maybe they were just waiting for whoever to come pick it up.
Do you guys think the same thing can be said with any like Tesla 3, Y, whatever? When mods start going those, they'll be more accepted as different and cooler? Or do you think, because we're talking about a truck now, and
Right.
You want to know what I found?
what'd you find?
Tesla has 6 what they call gigafactories, which are giant, large factories. Fremont, California, Sparks, Nevada, Berlin, Germany, Shanghai, China, Austin, Texas, and Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Austin, Texas also is the headquarters.
Oh, okay, interesting. So they did fully move then.
Well, I don't know if that's
Well, like
fully
their headquarters
but
moved because
their
it used to be in
headquarters did, yeah.
California. Okay.
And I would guess that's probably because SpaceX is down there too, if I remember right.
Tax breaks.
Yeah,
That's the big
probably.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
California's pretty highly taxed, I
Yeah.
believe.
I know the company I work for has a huge building down there. That's where a lot of our manufacturing, or most of our manufacturing, used to be. But it's cheaper to build stuff overseas.
Yeah.
So a lot of our manufacturing is in China and Singapore.
So to answer your question, Grant,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there is a small subgroup of Tesla owners that try to modify those cars. You know, they want something to stand out. They want something a little bit different, maybe sportier, maybe just different, right? They want to not look like the Tesla they're parked next to in the parking lot. But will that catch on and get to be a bigger thing? I kind of don't think so.
I'm wondering if that culture is kind of like in the 90s when we had all those economy cars. You know, like when we had, again, bringing up the Civic, like Brian
fine.
doesn't like that, and I understand, and
Well, that's his opinion. It doesn't matter.
But I was saying is like, not everyone likes those cars. Like, I'm not a big fan of like say the Ford Probe or whatever. But anyways, the 90s had like a kind of sterile look, and a lot of cars all look the same.
Okay.
But now you compare it to, say, now people are taking like the Honda Civic, bringing back to that one, and they're modifying it and actually making them look decent. Or same with
I mean, there was a culture doing it
Honda
then.
Accord.
Yeah, there was a culture even when those cars were new that wanted to do that with the Civics and the Accords, and you know, same as I think the Tesla one's even smaller than that, honestly, but kind of the same.
But is that where we're going to see a small and the span?
Maybe. I mean, that's who knows.
Yeah,
I don't know. If are they going to last long enough for that to happen?
I don't know. We'll see.
I think that's
in
kind
25 years.
Exactly. That's kind of a question.
You're talking about the new Hondas?
No, Teslas.
Oh, Teslas.
Yeah.
Oof.
So is a Tesla going to last long enough for the culture to come back around where people want to buy them and modify them now and make them into something else?
Maybe. Yeah.
Battery technology is going to make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So,
and cost.
You remember the company Toyota used to own? It kind of went under. Was it Scion?
Yes.
Yes. Is Scion's still around? Is it? Or are they fully?
I think they're gone.
Really?
Gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember what they were trying to do?
Be
Make a
cool
cheap car?
and edgy.
Well, they were trying to be the cheap car, but people were looking at them like they were the kid cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they were kind of like a Swiss Army knife. You could add stuff, you could change stuff.
Like the XB, the Cube.
No, I'm thinking the
TC.
car. Yeah.
The TC. It was Integra-esque.
Yes. So kids or younger people were buying those and doing the things that they wanted to do to them from the factory, right?
Yeah.
For affordability and that kind of thing. I think if somebody did that with electric cars, you'd probably see an influx in younger people buying them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. They would have to make it similar to the Scion in price range, though, because that group, I mean, they're not established yet. They're 20-somethings, right? They don't have that really high-paying, some of them do, they don't have that high-paying long-term job that they can afford to dump 60 or 80 grand on a car and then modify it after that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
But if they could buy one for 30.
Yeah, maybe.
And put 10 into it and make it look good, or, you know.
Well, at 30, they can afford the payments,
I think it's right when it gets to the point where it's like, when we see those electric cars hit like $5 grand, $4 grand in a field where like, is it going to be something going to fix up, throw up?
Yeah.
You know?
But they're sitting in a field for a reason, and that reason is the battery is still $30,000.
Yeah. Or the motor's totally shot.
At some point, we're going to have mass produce of any car. Is gonna, unless it's a rare exotic, that could be a future for it.
Yeah.
And that's something we could see.
You're saying for every car is destined for that.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and someone could fix it up and have a new life into it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. Even with the electric cars, we just are it's such an unknown of where that battery technology is going to go and the cost of it, because the cost is so prohibitive. Even now, if they have a battery issue in a Tesla, it's like throw the car away and get a new one because you can't afford to replace it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it costs you just as much as a new car to.
Yeah, but imagine when we get
the down
new
payment.
battery.
Well, you get the down payment. Your battery pack you have to replace costs say $20,000, and I think that's low. But you take that same 20. You trade in the junk car because now it doesn't work. You don't get much for it, but you take that 20 grand and put it on a new one. Done.
What about when shells get that cheap though? If you can buy one for like $3 grand and put a powertrain like an LS motor, and people have started doing that. Like when you could start putting that kind of drivetrain,
big project.
It is
because
massive,
you're going to have to.
But when enough people start doing that, like if it becomes the point or it's affordability, we can see a whole different car generation that was, now super aerodynamic cars that have, crazy
think
brakes and suspension on
We
it.
know that it can be done because we've
Yeah.
seen it already. But again, those people have resources that either they already had, because they're one-offs right now. I don't see that being commonplace. I think you might be right. We might see more of it, but I don't think it's going to be commonplace. It's still too expensive to
Yeah.
go buy the running gear to put a motor, an actual engine,
Yeah.
and transmission and rear end and everything that goes along with that to take a shell of an electric car and then turn it into a gas and plus fuel tanks.
Yeah, because you're basically
You
at
know-
that point taking the body off and setting it on,
On
a different
something
chassis.
else.
I
Yeah.
wonder, in terms of wheelbase length and stuff, as well as for cost.
what fits it.
No, I wonder if say in 10 years,
Okay.
cars that will be cheap, that are already cheap, and if they're in junkyards or wrecked out, whatever. I wonder if BRZ swaps and 8.6 swaps would fit in that well. You don't need a lot of power, and something that already has huge brakes. You lighten it up. It has
fit underneath a Tesla body.
yeah. And
So-
then you're just taking the whole drivetrain off because
Yeah.
those cars are. Imagine when they're wrecked and cheap in 10
Yeah.
years. We can see those for like $3-4 grand.
They'll become the new
Miata.
So
well, no,
Or
I
the
wasn't.
new- oh,
Fiero.
there you
so-
go. Exactly.
Yeah, so flip that,
Yeah.
right? What if you start seeing the people take the other bodies and put them on the Tesla?
Ooh, interesting.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I could see that because you get like a different look and the aerodynamic.
Yeah, wasn't that like one of the selling points early on of Tesla?
Correct.
Is the whole
The skateboard design.
yeah.
That was
and then
the-
you could take a body interchangeably. You get
Yeah,
tired
maybe.
of this one, you put a different one on it.
It's weird. I remember seeing that from Modern Marvels off the History Channel way back in the day. Now I'm dating myself. Thank you for making me feel old, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Welcome to
it
the
was,
club.
I believe it was Ford who did that, and their whole concept was, quote unquote, the skateboard design. And the skateboard design was batteries on the very bottom with
Right.
two electric motors side,
Right.
which Tesla adopted.
Right.
And that was the thing. It should have. There was a whole big push of the future will be you need a truck, unbolt the body, go into it, and put a new one on.
Right.
In fact, I remember it was shops. They were expecting there to be a new economy, not coming, a new infrastructure of people who would design businesses where you bring your car and lease a body. You need a truck for the weekend. Well, guess what? Put that on your
bolt it
skateboard.
on your skateboard?
Now you have a truck for the weekend, and then you need your the van to take all the kids to school. Bolt that on.
Well, that sure hasn't happened yet, has it?
No, but that could be something we could see.
How come we always end up talking about stupid electric cars?
I don't know.
Damn it.
I was thinking.
So let's
Damn
go.
it.
Let's go
I
a different
blame
direction
Grant.
with this.
I blame Grant for this electric car shit. He always brings it up.
You know, Jurassic Park.
You know, if you look at like German cars, right? For a while, they were trying to go to modular. So what they were trying to do is, depending on what engine size you wanted, they were trying to make each cylinder either 200 or 500 cc, depending on the motor configuration, right? So maybe it was 250 cc. So a 250 cc 4-cylinder would be what, 2 liter? Is that right? I guess it'd be a liter, 1 liter.
Okay. Yeah.
So 500 would be 2 liter, right?
Okay.
They were trying to go to that, and the reason they was because cost. They were trying to drive the cost of all the vehicles down so that...
Yeah, so if it's modular, they're building
That's
the same
right.
thing for... Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting thought, right? And, maybe one car was a 5-cylinder, one car was a 4-cylinder, one car was a 6-cylinder, whatever. But they were trying to make them modular so that they could, take all these parts and interchange them and use the same injectors. And,
Makes sense.
okay, maybe they had to do a different crankshaft, maybe they had to do a different camshaft, stuff like that.
Yeah.
To make these
even
things
if
run.
you had say 3 or 4 different block configurations, but all the external parts were the same. They bolted on no matter which block you had. So if you had a 3-cylinder, a 4-cylinder, a 6-cylinder, didn't matter. All the external components bolted right onto it.
That's right.
So yeah, that would definitely cut costs.
Isn't that what
100%.
modern day parts bin cars are? I mean, that's
what
like
we try to
that's-
do. Yeah.
I've noticed that about Ford. That's why Liger has so many different components from so
Right.
many different Fords, because you
Absolutely.
can do that. Same with Chevys and like
Yeah.
the LS motors.
Yep.
You know,
Agreed.
And the reason I bring that up is because the electric industry is trying to do the same thing, right? It's
Yeah.
all modular.
Yeah, absolutely.
but it would have been interesting, and still might be a future where we see modular cars coming back. Could you imagine a company where you go and just lease a body out and swap it? Especially like if you have a hydrogen car.
I mean,
that's
that would
different.
be an interesting,
Concept.
an interesting concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how feasible that is, but
You'd have to have a really good platform to build it off of.
yeah,
Well,
it
you
would, and all of your bodies would have to have.
Junction points.
Well, they would have to have the same wheelbase. They'd have to have
Yeah.
the same
And
kind of
that's-
weight structure.
That's completely doable. That's
Yeah.
all, you can plan that all out. That's a huge process that you
Yeah.
start from ground zero.
It wouldn't even need to be the same wheelbase, because you can have. Why wouldn't you have a body that can expand out and contract?
Well, you could.
Yeah.
How would
Yes,
you expand and contract your body?
A slider frame type of situation.
Yeah.
But would it really be necessary? I feel like it wouldn't.
If you need like a compact car, like a Mini, that's
Okay.
or a smart car that's just
Okay.
something for two people.
Yeah.
And then say
More
if
of
you
a
want
city driver rather than a pickup truck.
exactly.
Okay.
You don't.
Yeah.
So, are you making the skateboard or the base of the car slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have your motors in each front or rear or just rear, and you just have it pull
Yeah,
back and forth.
I
Here
think
we
you'd
are
be-
talking about fucking electric cars again, you motherfuckers. Drug me down that rabbit hole.
I'm
You like how
Can you put an engine in something for F6?
You like how I drug it back?
God damn it.
it doesn't even have to be electric. It's
I
just
was
saying
trying to get
a
him to
motor
not
on
notice.
in the front and back.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
even if it's a gas motor.
But it's the batteries, right? The batteries.
let's-
on the
No,
side.
let's
it's
just
a
say-
gas motor
No,
on a
honestly,
modular frame.
honestly, why if a modular?
It's an LS3 based
But if no, let's go back.
with a
Let's say you have-
T56.
But the chassis slides.
Let's say you
Yes.
have something in the back
Yes.
that's just a standard 4-cylinder engine. It could be in the back or the front. Doesn't matter, because
Yeah.
the fact is, let's say you have a CVT transmission to it. Can you take a CVT transmission? Hear me out.
I
Because you
got
can
you.
also
Yeah, 4-cylinder, it's fine.
If the engine's in the front and it's a front powered engine car, but then if you flip it back and say you have a gear to reverse that, now you have a CVT transmission that is powering in the opposite direction.
yeah.
But why
And you
would
can
what are you
do
going to do
that?
with your steering?
Because that one I'm not sure.
though? Okay.
You can make it 4-wheel steering.
Oh, beautiful.
Well,
But
but
you
can
four-wheel
really
steering,
confuse-
but where does your steering wheel go? Because you're not going to move it from front
Well-
to back super easy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is if it's
Reconfigurable.
yeah. Well, think about it, because most modern electric cars, you have electric brakes and you have electric steering. Sorry, you do.
I
Have
mean,
electric.
I guess
So
you
if-
could drive it with a video game controller, right?
But
I
I'm
mean,
saying is
Just like that submarine that got crushed.
Yeah, but having a modular car though,
PS2.
I think would be a very interesting, different thing to see in the future. And we've talked. That's something that's
There's
been
got to
happening in the
be,
past.
I'm sure there's smarter people in auto industry that have tried to come up with this, and for some reason or another,
I bet you it comes down to cost.
it,
But I
it
think if
has to.
someone
But
found that
you would
formula-
certainly think that formula would be cost effective
Yeah.
because you're mass producing single parts instead of all these different parts.
But
that we have
imagine
now.
if you had a business like again where you're leasing out bodies, you wouldn't need to mass produce. You would need every store having 15 bodies of a specific type, and then bringing.
So let's say
returning
you
customer.
owned a business
Okay.
and you had an F350 or an F550,
Okay.
and you bought it as just a cab truck, right?
Yeah.
No bed,
Okay.
right? But in your business, you don't want to buy multiple trucks, but maybe you want
Like a van or a bus.
no.
Okay.
Maybe you want to do different things with it.
Okay.
Right? So this chassis, you could put a box on the back,
Mm-hmm.
or you could put a flatbed on the back, or you could put a dump bed on the back, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if they made those modular?
I think they do.
So all you need to do is pull a couple of pins,
Yeah, make it easy, quick change.
make it
Yeah.
super easy to do,
Yep.
maybe there's a hydraulic system that they have that's super easy to bolt in.
That'd be
and
awesome.
plug in.
Yeah.
Come back
Right?
to Ford,
Yeah.
you just swap out a body.
Oh shit! You don't
Right
even
back there.
you bring it back into the garage where Grant is just waiting.
Yeah.
To put this new bed on.
15 minutes,
exactly.
15 minutes, and you got a new bed on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, delete this part out when we edit, and we'll start a new company.
Not giving away any trade secrets here.
We figured the formula.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, people like your dad, right? If he could take the same chassis and have a dump bed and have a flatbed and have a box truck,
Yeah.
or
it be
I
worth
think,
it?
but I think when it comes down to is when you have those needs, which is great, it comes down to spacing too.
Yeah.
I think if there was a place you could take it and swap out beds like that, so you don't have to have the storage of 5 different beds
Yeah.
of vehicles that essentially are just sitting there.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that would be game changer. Take it in
Or-
like it'd be like an oil change essentially. You take it in.
So basically, you lease the flatbed or you lease the box truck, and you go down to Columbia Ford, and you're like, "Hey, I reserved a box truck. I need it swapped out." And they're like, "Yep, back it in over here." In
Yep.
15 minutes, they swap it out, and you're good to go again.
yeah.
But what if
But
on
you're
the back of
constantly
that
leasing
truck?
that. Yeah.
But what if on the back of that truck in the box you had all the equipment that you needed for a specific job,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And that job's going to be at this place for
Well, you could keep them
Drop
too.
it off.
3 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
You pull in, you let the jacks jack it up, you drive out from under it, you set the thing on the ground, you lock up the back,
And drive away.
and you drive away.
Yeah.
And then you come back, maybe you're there 5 days a week, but
They
you
call
need,
those containers.
that's right.
Yeah.
But it's on the back of your truck,
Yeah,
so
no, I
you can
get it.
pick it up and take it and drop it off, and then the next day you need to be down there to work on your crane. But you have a service box
Yeah.
that you pick up and drive the same truck down there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, cost effective. It's probably worth it. I mean, you're going to spend a bit of money on each different bed or whatever attachment, right? But you've got the base vehicle at $50,000, and then you've got 15 to 30 grand in attachment per attachment.
What's a 550
Is it?
cost? Those are
I
probably
just throw a number.
$100,000,
Yeah, I
right?
just throw a
No.
number. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But is it worth that, or is it better to just have multiple trucks?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going to solve this.
No. And that could be for maybe something else.
I mean, it's an interesting topic.
It is
Yeah.
interesting thought.
So
And it gets you away
we
from
went from
electric.
interesting cars
Thank
that we
God.
saw this week to interesting topics.
yeah, right. That's all I've got for today, guys. How about you? Grant will always think of something.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not looking at him right now. I'm not going to do it.
No, I think
I'm
I
pretty
think that was
happy
a
with
good
it.
conversation with Brian.
So
Yeah,
something
that
for
was
the
really nice
listeners,
meeting
if you disagree with something we have said,
Oh, yeah,
or
we
if
should bring
you
that up.
think that we're wrong, reach out. I want to hear it. I am all about it. I want to hear your
You're all
comments.
about it until someone emails and say, I want to talk about that Tesla.
no,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
here's the thing, Grant.
I can
right?
delete that email before you see it.
You
No.
got some feedback this week.
Yeah.
That maybe one of the topics that we were talking about while you were gone, we didn't fact check ourselves. So
I didn't say it, but I said someone else.
yes,
Yeah.
you- I didn't say you, but
Sorry.
you had a conversation with somebody that said that.
Yeah.
So reach out to
And we
us
wanna
with
hear that
I
from
want to
you.
hear that.
I went back through the episode and was trying to figure out what maybe I would have said that could have been construed that way. The only thing I could come up with was my knowledge on the Audi e-trons. When I went back and did a little bit of research on the Audi e-trons,
Yeah.
it looks like there's a whole bunch of different e-tron models.
I'll have to check with that person because they were like, I think only like, for it sounded like only 30 minutes in the episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But
cool.
that's-
but
but-
the point is, we're not butthurt about it.
No, we're
wanna,
not.
We
I want to
don't.
know what I said wrong. So
We
I
wanna
can,
don't
hear from you.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't know everything. I'll say that. Even when I'm saying something, I'm like, I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
Happy to hear. If you know better or if you have some information, well, reach out. Send us a Twitter. That seems to be pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Untitled Car Pro. Reach out. Send us an email. untitledcarproject@gmail.com.
Hit us
I
up on
want
Instagram.
to hear from you. And if you've got hate mail for us, bring that too.
Yeah.
We're not great. We get it. we're working on our sound quality. It's been a process. We're
I
trying
think,
to take steps
today it felt
to make
good.
it better. It did. We had a little less echo.
Yeah.
But we're just getting into this thing. We're trying
I feel
We're
like
having
our
fun.
levels were pretty good this week.
a little bit better.
Oh, you want me to talk louder? Okay, that's fine.
No, I just want you to be closer to the mic so I don't hear an echo.
Okay.
And don't breathe into it like this.
Well, it was that we'll talk after the show. So,
No, I actually enjoyed episode today. Thanks again to Brian Morrison for coming on the show.
thank you so much.
Listeners, check out the Facebook group, Project Cars for Sale Cheap. There's some really good stuff on there, and maybe you'll find your next project. You just never know. Until next time, guys, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Hit us up and hit follow on that podcast.
And if you want to sponsor us for our Mint 400 truck, that's coming up soon.
Oh, man.
Talk to you guys again later.